Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. This is a story about what if Naruto snaps at Sasuke at Valley of the End. Before I start, please support for more amazing content and do consider subscribing to my channel and share this video with your friends. This is written by zentary, link in the description and support writer. Let's start the video. Chapter 1. Prologue. Naruto's breaking point. Prologue. Naruto sighed. So much had happened to him in the past 5 years. He had left the Leaf Village right after he had brought back Sasuke Uchiha from the Valley of the End. Like he promised the Uchiha, he had broken every bone in his body, well almost. When he returned, he was greeted by Sakura. Although it wasn't the greeting he had been expecting. Flashback. Well, Sasuke, looks like we're back at the village now. Naruto commented through gritted teeth as the bleeding Chidori hole in his chest was very painful. Naruto could see the massive gates of the village. He walked past them to see Sakura standing there waiting for him. He gave a weak smile and was about to say hi when he noticed her eyes grew wide as she rushed over to them. What did you do to Sasuke-kun? Sakura screamed at Naruto before ripping Sasuke from his hands and knocking her blonde-haired teammate to the ground in the process. I brought him back, Naruto stammered while clutching his chest in discomfort. It looks like you almost killed him, you baka. But Sakura-chan, I told you I would bring him back and I did. I fulfilled my prom. Slap. The sound of the slap seemed to echo throughout Konoha as Naruto touched his face and didn't know what to say. He gazed at Sakura in shock, who was glaring at him with tears flowing down her face as she yelled. Look what you did to Sasuke-kun. Did you see those wounds he had? You did this to him. I told you to bring him back to me, not to bring him back beat up and almost at the brink of death. But Sakura-chan, I didn't have a choice. Slap. Shut up. I don't want to listen to you. Were you trying to kill him, you monster? Naruto glanced up at Sakura with confusion and hurt gleaming in his eyes as he heard the young Kunoichi snarl with derision and hate. I ask you to do one simple thing and you screw it up. You really are the dope Sasuke-kun always called you because you can't do anything right. You truly are the dead last and no matter what you do, Sasuke-kun will always be better than you. Naruto just sat there as she started shouting out insults before something inside him finally broke. He had only done what she had tearfully begged him to do, but it apparently wasn't good enough. During her rant of insults he snapped. Sakura, shut up. Sakura gasped in shock at the force and the fury within Naruto's voice directed towards her and even noticed that he had dropped the chan suffix from her name. So, this is the thanks I get for bringing back your precious Sasuke-kun to you, Sakura. You selfish, ungrateful bitch. All I have ever done my whole life is given my blood, sweat and tears for you, hoping to make you happy and be your friend, but you're right, I am a dope. You want to know something funny, Sakura? As I was fighting for my life against the team, I actually thought that you would feel sad if I died trying to bring him back to you like I promised. Now I realize you wouldn't have cared if I had died trying to keep that promise if it meant your precious Sasuke-kun was alive and well. Kami, I'm such an idiot for believing that you ever gave a damn about me. But you hurt Sasuke-kun, Sakura tearfully stammered, fearful of Naruto's new attitude towards her. Same typical Sakura, always with a one-track mind and always about Sasuke. Everything and everyone be damned, especially me. When Sakura couldn't even answer the young shinobi and only sob, Naruto spat with disgust at his teammate and said with venom dripping from his voice, fine. Take Sasuke. I don't care anymore. I've only ever done what's asked of me, but I see now it will never be enough. This is goodbye, Sakura. I hope you're happy with this prick. Naruto turned around and left the village. He gripped his chest in pain as he took off as fast as his wounded body would take him. Tsunade arrived at the gate, but she was too late to stop the damage that had been done. Where's Naruto? Tsunade wondered. That baka left. Look what he did to Sasuke-kun. Sakura cried. What? What did you say to him? Tsunade asked. When she answered, Tsunade walked over, grabbed Sakura by the throat and held her in the air. Tsunade, at the moment, planned on choking the life out of her. Tsunade, stop. You can't just go and kill her. Shizune pleaded with her sensei. Why the hell not? What she said to Naruto made him leave right after coming back. She yelled. At this point Sakura's face was turning color from lack of oxygen. Tsunade finally let go of Sakura and ordered a few shinobi to take the now unconscious Sakura and badly beaten Sasuke to the hospital. A young girl with indigo hair stood in an alley. She had watched the whole thing. She couldn't move or say anything. She just stood there crying. She was also angry. She had never felt like that towards anyone, but Sakura had done something she would never forgive her for. End of flashback. That event still made Naruto's blood boil. After that, he had closed himself off from everyone. He would not be hurt again. Shortly after his departure from the Leaf Village, he ran into Itachi and Kisame. They were in need of his services. Flashback. It had been a few weeks since Naruto left the village. He had taken a few small jobs in the various towns he stopped in to provide the little he needed of himself. He lived in the woods to keep out of sight of people that may try to find him. Naruto was currently packing the few belongings he had when two figures appeared near him. Naruto knew who they were since they tried to take him away a few weeks earlier. Well, if it isn't Kisame and Itachi. You guys trying to capture me again for the furball? No, not this time around, kid, Kisame replied. Kisame is correct. This time we are in need of your help. We thought it was odd when the order was sent out for us to capture the tailed beasts. Therefore, after our encounter, we did some digging. It seems Madara Uchiha is controlling our leader and we require your assistance. Naruto thought about it for a time. He came to the conclusion that he really had nothing left to lose. Alright, but what's in it for me? Naruto asked. Well, what do you want? Itachi asked. Well, if we manage to pull this off and I live, I want you two to train me. Itachi looked at Kisame who just shrugged in agreement. We find this to be acceptable. Myself and Kisame will train you if we manage to succeed with this plan, Itachi replied. Itachi and Naruto shook on it. He left with Kisame and Itachi to put their plan into motion. End of flashback. Naruto took a sip of his sake. The plan had succeeded, but when they tried to kill Madara, he managed to escape. Madara had run to the hidden sound village that was controlled by Orochimaru. They tried to find him within the village, but were unable to locate him. The Akatsuki, since Madara was unable to control pain any longer. They were mercenaries for hire now. Much like they were when they first started. They didn't look for the tailed beasts any longer, as that was never their goal in the first place. The group did help out people for free from time to time, but not very often. Naruto was grateful to this group because Itachi and Kisame had kept their word. The two trained Naruto and taught him everything they knew. They admitted him into their group, but he didn't wear the same cloak as they did. He hated those red clouds. He just wore a plain black cloak. Naruto carried two ninjato that he used often. His swords were concealed under his cloak so you wouldn't know that he had them until he went to use them. Naruto had done quite a few things he wasn't too proud of while with this group, but it was just a job. He was an expert assassin now, but he didn't really like doing that sort of job. Naruto took another sip of his sake. His mind switched to events that are more recent. Like the fact that Orochimaru and Madara had somehow aligned themselves with the Land of Earth and the Land of Lightning. Their overall scheme was probably the destruction of the village hidden in the leaves, Naruto's former village. He really didn't care, but the pain cared and had planned to form an alliance with the Leaf Village and their allies. Naruto hated this plan. He never wanted to return to that place, but it seemed like this was just one of those times he didn't have a choice in the matter. He thought about the argument he had with Pain over the issue a couple of days back. Flashback, you've got to be kidding. I'd rather see that place burn. Naruto yelled. I understand your feelings, Naruto, but we can't allow Madara to have his way any longer. This must be done, even if you dislike the prospect. Dislike is not a harsh enough word to describe how I feel about it, Yahiko. Naruto, I need your help on this one. I need people who once lived there to do the negotiations. We will be helping Konoha and their allies from now on, and that's the final verdict. Do you think Sasori wants to deal with his past in the Sand Village? I doubt Kisame wishes to deal with his problems in Kiri either. I've already sent word to their Hokage that we will be coming in 2 days, but I did not say you were among our ranks. I felt that was something you should tell them, since they don't know. Fine, I'll do it. Naruto began to walk out, but suddenly stopped and looked back at Yahiko. But this is your only favor, Yahiko. Naruto walked out of the room. Yahiko knew the story of Naruto's life in the Leaf Village. He felt bad for him. Yahiko never really felt bad for anyone, but he did feel bad for Naruto. He wouldn't want to return either, if he were Naruto. End of flashback. Naruto sighed. He had been drinking sake all day since he got the news he'd be returning to the place where it all started for him today. He looked at the 7 bottles that he already drank. He reached out for another when someone stopped him. Naruto, drinking won't help. At least, not for long, Itachi stated. I know, he muttered. You know today is the day we will be returning to the Leaf Village, Itachi said as he sat down on the opposite side of the table from Naruto. Yeah, I know. I just planned on never returning to that place. Yes, well, life hardly ever works out how we plan it, Naruto. Ain't that the truth, Naruto said as he grabbed the last bottle of sake. Why don't you have a drink with me? Naruto asked, shaking the bottle slightly. I suppose it couldn't hurt. Itachi held out a drinking dish for Naruto to pour some sake in. Did you ever think you would go back to the village, Itachi? No. I never thought a day would come where I would go back to defend that place. Itachi hadn't seen Naruto this depressed since he asked him what happened for him to leave the village. He hadn't had a stellar departure from the village either, but it seemed Naruto's was a lot harder on him. Well, at least once your little secret is out you will be welcomed back with open arms. Well, I will still be hated as the demon brat no matter what I do, Naruto said sadly as he looked at what remained of the sake in the clay bottle. He quickly chugged the remains of the bottle. Naruto reached into his coat and took out his old forehead protector that had a slash across it. He slowly put it on his head. He never had planned to wear it ever again, but he thought it would be appropriate to wear it now. Chapter 1. Naruto looked at the massive front gates of Konoha. He hadn't seen this sight in half a decade. He wished he didn't have to see it again. The only thing the sight did for him was bring back painful memories. He looked at the other members of the Akatsuki, all wearing their black cloaks with red clouds and their straw hats. He was the only one dressed a bit differently, and that was because he didn't have those red clouds on his cloak. They were now at the front gates greeted by Tsunade and 4 Jounin acting as her guard. The Jounin consisted of Kakashi Haddock, Kurana Yuhi, Asuma Sarutobi, and Might Guy. "Well, Lady Tsunade, it's nice to be greeted so well," Pain said. "Yes, well, I thought it best to meet you at the front gate so there were no misunderstandings. Pain, I will meet you and the rest in the council chambers in 15 minutes. Naruto hesitated for a moment before continuing. "There are some things I need to take care of. Of course, just remember to be there in 15 minutes. "With your permission of course, Lady Tsunade." "I assure you he won't cause any trouble inside the village," Pain contritely asked. "Very well, I will allow him to tour the village," Tsunade replied. Tsunade had Anbu watching from the rooftops. They would shadow the Akatsuki member wherever he went. Naruto disappeared in a flash of red light to go take care of his business. The sight shocked everyone except the other Akatsuki members. 2 Anbu squads were leaping in all directions trying to find the Akatsuki member. "Well, lead on, Lady Tsunade," Pain said, breaking the silence. They all left for her office to discuss a few items of interest before calling the council meeting. But Naruto arrived at the academy. There were so few people that were ever nice to him. He hoped Iruka still worked as a teacher here. Naruto walked through the academy halls. Teachers were ducking into rooms as he walked the halls. They had all heard of an Akatsuki member who just wore a plain black robe. Naruto was rather amused by their actions. Naruto finally came to the room where Iruka taught his classes. He opened the door slightly to see Iruka was indeed still a schoolteacher. He walked into the room to see everyone turn to see him. Iruka had a kunai at the ready just in case anything happened. He had been told by the Hokage not to attack. However, that didn't mean he would let his guard down around them. "What do I owe the pleasure of this visit?" Iruka asked. His voice was tense because he knew he stood no chance in a flat-out fight. "Don't be so tense, Iruka. I only came here to see you," Naruto replied. Iruka raised an eyebrow. "Why would you come to see me of all people?" "Well, I guess I don't sound the same as I used to, nor am I as short. However, I used to come to your class in the academy." Iruka thought about it for a moment. The voice did sound oddly familiar. Then it hit him and he knew who was standing in front of him. "Naruto?" Iruka mouthed. Naruto nodded his head in confirmation. "It's been some time, hasn't it, Iruka? I never expected you to be a part of the Akatsuki." Iruka wasn't sure how to act. He was happy Naruto was doing well, but also sad that he had joined that organization. "And I never thought I'd ever return to this village. Life is full of surprises," Naruto said. "Class, take an early break while I talk with our guest." The class complied and quickly filed out of the room. They didn't want to be in the room in case a fight broke out. "I'm rather short on time, Iruka, so if you want to talk, you will just have to come with me to my next destination." "Where were you planning on going?" Iruka asked. "The old man's grave," Naruto said simply as he walked out of the room. Iruka grabbed a sign and quickly exited the room. He shut the door and put the sign on it. The sign was meant for his assistant. He caught up to Naruto just as he was exiting the academy. Iruka walked beside Naruto as they made their way to the graveyard. "So, how have you been? Have you been eating right and getting enough sleep?" Iruka asked. "Always the parent, Iruka." "Yes, I've been just fine. The others in the Akatsuki got me off of my ramen-only diet years ago." "That's good. I told you for years only eating ramen wasn't good enough for you." Naruto cracked a small smile that Iruka couldn't see. Naruto looked at the rooftops. He saw the Anbu were watching his movements. They didn't speak after the first short conversation until they reached the graveyard. "Well, old man, it's been 5 years," Naruto said to Hiruzen's gravestone. Naruto had a short conversation with the stone. He talked about Madara and a few of the other more current events. Iruka stood and just watched, remaining silent. Naruto stopped when he heard someone coming. "Someone's coming," Naruto stated. Iruka looked behind him to see who was coming. Hinata Hyuga popped out of the trees. She looked rather irritated. "Iruka, what are you doing here and why did you call early break and leave a note on the door for me?" she asked. While I was talking to he turned around to see Naruto had disappeared. Hinata misinterpreted what was happening and thought he was talking with old man Hiruzen's gravestone. "Well, take a few minutes. I already have everyone back in class now. I'll head back and give you some time," she said sympathetically. Hinata shunshined back to the academy to make sure the class wasn't getting out of hand. "Now, what was all that about?" Naruto asked, reappearing next to the gravestone. Hinata wants to be a teacher, so she's my assistant for the time being until she proves she can run her own class. Although, with what has been happening, she will be recalled to active duty. Hinata's even a jounin now you know. Haruka said the last part with pride as if she was one of his former students, before stating with regret. It's a shame Hinata will be recalled to active duty, she really wanted to be a teacher. Haruka suddenly grinned at Naruto and asked. Hinata's pretty good looking, isn't she? She's also single at least for now, that is. Haruka had a rather grim look on his face when he said the last part. Naruto had remained silent and unmoving, not giving away what he was thinking. He didn't understand why Haruka looked and sounded so grim when he said the last part. He decided not to dwell on it any further. I'm not here to make friends or find love, Haruka. I'm just here to do a job, nothing more. You really have changed, haven't you, Naruto? Naruto began to walk off from the cemetery. My 15 minutes are up, Haruka. I'll see you around. Can we talk later? Maybe over some ramen, perhaps. I would like that, Haruka said just before Naruto disappeared. Naruto appeared at the council chambers. He saw the two Anbu guards at the door. He could feel their discomfort as he walked up to the double doors. He pushed open the double doors to see all the Akatsuki members standing around the room looking somewhat annoyed. Pain was in the center of the room with Itachi, they both had their hats off, as they were the ones speaking. You're late, Pain said to Naruto. Yeah, it's not like I'm really needed here anyhow, Naruto replied in an annoyed tone of voice. Naruto just leaned up against a wall next to some of the other members. Naruto listened to the argument between the civilian council and the shinobi council over the Akatsuki's demands. The Akatsuki weren't demanding much of anything, it was most likely the lack of control the council had over them that was the issue. The contract stated that only the Hokage could order them and no one else. Naruto sighed, Itachi was looking at him as if he wanted him to say something. Naruto walked over and into the middle of the room. Everyone grew silent when Naruto stood in front of the Hokage. Tsunade, do you find our demands to be acceptable? Yes, I find them to be acceptable. What do the clan heads have to say about it? I think I speak for the rest when I say we find them to be acceptable. We had honestly expected your group to demand more, Hiashi stated. Well, if you all agree, then it's settled. Wait, what do you mean it's settled? Yelled Kaharu and Homura. The Hokage and the clan heads have agreed. Therefore, there is nothing more to be discussed, Naruto said, trying to stall his anger. Naruto was trying to be polite and not hurt someone as he spoke. Pain didn't want him to kill a council member, as that would cause a lot of problems. Danzu decided to speak up. We are the Hokage's advisors. We have a say in the matter when it comes to something as important as this. No, you don't. I know what the three of you are like, always scheming and plotting to keep your own power. You three are far past your prime. I'm surprised Hiruzen didn't just retire the three of you and appoint younger advisors, Naruto said in such a way that it made their blood boil. How dare you talk to us like that? Homura yelled. How dare I? Naruto yelled. You three were most responsible for my shitty life in this damn village. The only reason I didn't kill the three of you in your sleep was because Pain and Itachi asked me not to. I'll be damned if I do or go with anything you three worthless bastards have to say. Kaharu, Homura, and even Danzu were actually afraid of this man. Who are you? Danzu asked. Who am I? Oh, so you haven't figured it out. I'm the one person besides my Nyasan, Itachi, who has more desire to kill you three than anyone else. I'm surprised you've forgotten about me, considering all the time you three old farts spent making my life a living hell growing up. That really says you three fossils are far too old to be sitting on the council anymore, Naruto stated as he removed his hat and revealed himself. It's been some time, hasn't it, Bachan? Tsunade was shocked. Naruto was with the Akatsuki. She just stared at him, not knowing what to say to him. She had sent shinobi out for the past 5 years to find him to no avail. Now she knew why they had never found him in all that time. The clan heads along with Tsunade's three advisors were stunned as well. The entire room was dead silent until Tsunade spoke again. You're finally home, Naruto. Tsunade's voice held many different emotions in that small phrase. Among them were sadness and regret because of what happened 5 years ago. I'm not home, Bachan. I haven't considered this place home since that day I brought Sasuke back from the Valley of the End. I'm here to do a favor for the men standing behind me, nothing more. I'm not here to make friends nor have people apologize to me. The job is all I'm here for. Naruto was finished talking and listening to the people in the room. He turned around and walked out the double doors. But Tsunade began to say, but Naruto was already walking out of the room. Tsunade sighed. She was sad and Naruto had changed so much, but she was actually expecting something like this to happen once she saw him again. However, that didn't mean she was prepared for it. Itachi, give this to him, would you? Tsunade threw Itachi a key. What's this? Asked as he caught the key. That's the key to the Namikaze estate. The place has been kept up with over the years and it is rightfully his. Many in the council room just stared at her. Some had long suspected who Naruto's parents were and it was finally confirmed today. Naruto was the last surviving Namikaze and Uzumaki. I'll be sure to deliver it to him. They all began to leave the council chambers. Wait, Itachi, you said you were having trouble with your eyes earlier. Do you want me to check them out and see what I can do? Yes. I'll be at the hospital in 20 minutes. The Akatsuki soon left the room. Their business had been settled easily thanks to Naruto's interference. They all walked outside to see Naruto waiting for them to come out. Itachi threw him the key, which Naruto caught. What's this? He asked. The key to your parents' home, Tsunade wanted you to have it. Itachi turned to everyone else. Why don't you guys go look around? They all just nodded and broke off into pairs. Naruto was like the little brother of the group, even though he was by no means the weakest, but they still looked out for him. You know that saying, everything happens for a reason? Yes, I've heard it a few times, Itachi replied. I've had so much crap happen in my life. I just can't see how there is a reason for it all. Naruto tossed him the key. You guys go check it out. I'm just going to wander for a bit. Naruto put his hat back on and walked off. With Hinata was teaching a class how to throw kunai and shuriken. This was her last class of the day. As she explained how to throw these ninja weapons, half the boys in the class were just drooling over her. The other half were actually paying attention to her. The girls in the class were listening, as they idolized her. Over the years, Hinata had become one of the best kunoichi that the village had ever produced. She was strong and she was beautiful. Hinata had gotten rid of her heavy jacket 2 years ago. Hinata now wore a white long-sleeved t-shirt with a yin-yang symbol on the back of it. The shirt itself hugged her body like a glove and showed her womanly figure and curves that were the envy of many women in the village. The t-shirt had an 8-inch vertical cut in the center from the collar, showing that Hinata wore underneath the shirt a mesh undergarment which displayed just a tantalizing glimpse of the ample cleavage the young Hyuga woman possessed. The sleeves of the t-shirt where her wrists were a dark purple. Hinata wore dark blue pants that stretched tightly down her long, sleek yet slender legs down to her ankles. Her sandals were black and the strap stretched up to where her pants ended. She grew her hair out, it was now down to her butt in length. The men in the village had all tried at one point to get her to go out with them. Although she would always give them the same reply. I already know who I want to date and he is not you. She gave that reply to every man who would ask her out. Hinata's abilities in her family style were on par with her cousin, Niji, and her father, Hiashi. Her proficiency with water ninjutsu was phenomenal. Even when there was no water to be had, she could still use A-ranked water ninjutsu. That was a feat only the Nidaime and a few others could boast to accomplish. Hinata even apprenticed under Tsunade for 3 years. With her Byakugan, she was also a fantastic medical ninja, as she could see inside the body as she treated it. Hinata watched as the students began to try their hand at throwing the weapons. Most of them were pretty good at throwing the weapons. Although, there were always some better than others at it. She did find joy in teaching the young ones how to become shinobi of the village. One of the girls in the class started to cry because she was only able to hit the target once. Hinata walked over to talk with the girl. The 12-year-old had long black hair and dark blue eyes. Hinata knelt down beside the girl and asked her what the problem was. What's wrong, Sora? Hinata asked. I just don't get it. Why can't I hit the target like everyone else, Nichin? She said as tears formed in her eyes. Not everyone can do things right away. Sometimes it takes more effort to get the result that you're looking for, Hinata said in a comforting tone. I knew a boy. His name was Naruto. When he was your age, he couldn't really hit the target either, but he never gave up. He tried again and again until he became just as good at it as anyone else. Because of that determination, he beat my cousin Niji in the Chunin exam finals when he was 13. Of course, the first part was a small lie, but it did what she wanted it to as Sora was cheered up by it. Really? Sora asked. Yes, Naruto was quite the determined individual, Hinata said with a smile. Where is Naruto now? Sora asked curiously. It took everything Hinata had not to shed a tear as the events of 5 years ago flashed in her mind. He's no longer in this village, she replied. But why? Sora asked. 5 years ago Naruto came back from the retrieval mission of Sasuke Uchiha. Some people were not satisfied with how badly beaten Sasuke was, so they drove him out of the village. He hasn't been back since then. She smiled at the young girl. How about once I'm done with today's paperwork and I'll help you some more? The young girl smiled brightly and hugged Hinata. Now that's all for today's lessons. Head back inside. Your teacher is waiting for you all. As soon as everyone made it inside, Hinata decided to call out the person who had been watching her the entire time the class was taking place. Please come out already. I've known you were there since the class started. Naruto smirked, Hinata had gotten quite sharp over the years. To detect him was not something easily done and she wasn't even using her Byakugan. Naruto appeared in front of the targets. What does the Akatsuki want with me? Hinata asked. Nothing, I was just walking around when I saw you helping that little girl and your class, so I decided to watch, that's all. You were quite right though. Even a prodigy can't succeed if he doesn't put in the effort. This Naruto you spoke of, you seem to admire him a lot. I didn't just admire Naruto-kun, Akatsuki-san, I love him. Hinata's voice was filled with regret as she spoke. Naruto was taken aback by what Hinata had said. He wasn't sure what to do. Hinata gave a sad laugh as a tear rolled down her face. It's funny, I can say something like this to a complete stranger, but back then, if it was Naruto-kun, I would freeze up because I never had the courage to tell him how I felt. After he left, though, I finally was able to find the strength and courage to admit to everyone that I loved him. Maybe if I saw him once more, I could admit my feelings to him. Hinata looked at the ground and sighed sadly. Probably not, though. I would just freeze up again even now if I did see him. Naruto actually felt guilty. That was something he hadn't felt in 5 years. Naruto decided to pry a little further. Are you still waiting for this man to return? Hinata gave a sad smile as more tears ran down her cheeks. I am waiting, yes. Although I won't have that luxury much longer. I don't understand. You won't wait any longer. It's not that I won't wait, it's just my clan, and excuse me. Hinata finally broke down and began to cry uncontrollably. Tears were streaming down her cheeks, she ran off somewhere into the academy to be alone. Naruto remembered what Iruka had said. The look on his face, the tone of his voice. Naruto disappeared. He was off to find Iruka. He would know what was going on. Naruto found Iruka in the teacher's lounge sitting with some other teachers. He walked over to the group. Iruka, we need to talk. The rest of you leave the room. The other teachers didn't even bother to protest, they just quickly ran out of the room. What is it, Naruto? You sound so tense. Well, I ran into Hinata. She told me some interesting things about how she felt about me. Of course she didn't know who I was. You said something that made me curious. But I decided to not think about it until she said something very similar. You talked as if she was going to be in a relationship soon. And, her talking about not being able to wait any longer and her crying as she said it. It got me thinking that she's being forced into something. Iruka sighed sadly. Take a seat, Naruto. I might as well tell you what's happening. Naruto took a seat at the table Iruka was sitting at. Alright, tell me, Naruto demanded. Where to begin? I suppose this is as good a place as any. Iruka muttered. Kiba never liked you much, Naruto. The feeling was mutual, Naruto replied. Yes, well, he was also always infatuated with Hinata. However, she would never give him the time of day. After you left, he figured he had a shot with her. Of course, he got shot down. Naruto was growing a bit impatient. Cut to the chase. Iruka. Last year, Kiba became the leader of his clan. His mother still does the council meetings, but that's only until Kiba is ready to take over in that aspect as well. However, Kiba is the official leader of the Inizuka clan. He tried courting Hinata again recently, but she shot him down again. So Kiba went to Hiashi with a marriage proposal. Hiashi has since accepted the marriage proposal. Iruka stopped as he could feel the killer intent coming off of Naruto. This is another reason why I hate this stupid village. They make people do things they would never want to. Naruto's voice was filled with rage. Naruto got up and walked out of the room. Naruto, there is nothing you can do about it. Naruto stopped. Oh, but there are a great many things I can do about it, Naruto replied darkly. Naruto left the room, planning on what he should do about the mutt known as Kiba in Inizuka. But Itachi and Kisame. Itachi had just gotten done with his checkup at the hospital. He was thankful Tsunade could repair the damage to his ocular nerves, which were being damaged with each use of the second stage of the Sharingan. Although he would need to go back for a few more treatments before his eyes were 100%. She was also able to do something about the annoying disease he had been plagued with for so long, although he wasn't complete cured of it yet, as Tsunade needed time to make the medicine. In addition, he would have to get regular treatments for his eyes whenever he used them. As they were leaving the hospital grounds, they saw Naruto waiting for them. So, have fun roaming the streets of the village. People were afraid to be near me. It was kind of fun to watch them squirm, he replied. Naruto did not intend to tell any of the Akatsuki members about the events a short while ago. Shortly after Naruto joined the Akatsuki, the members changed. The group itself acted like one big family now. Well, a rather large dysfunctional family, considering it's filled with psychopaths. They all treated him like the little brother of the group, as he was indeed the youngest. Well, glad to see the walk through the village was amusing to you, Itachi replied. How about we go check out your parents' former residence? Yeah, let's see what kind of place I get to crash in this time, Kisame stated. No destroying the building if you don't like it, Kisame, Itachi replied. You really are no fun sometimes, Itachi, Kisame muttered. Itachi just rolled his eyes. The two of them were friends, but sometimes Kisame's antics could be a bit much. The three of them walked around and found that Naruto's parents lived on a rather large estate. The house must have had 14 bedrooms, considering the size of the house. They wouldn't be completely sure until they went inside and looked. They looked through the house. The place looked like no one had stepped inside it for 18 years, as there was a thick layer of dust. Thankfully, there was plastic on the furniture, so it would be easy to clean everything that way. They looked around to see there were actually 12 bedrooms, 1 large study, and 6 bathrooms. There was also a hot spring next door in a smaller building and a dojo. "Wow, I'm impressed. I didn't think your parents were this loaded," Kisum stated. He was honestly impressed. That wasn't something easily done. "Kisum, would you go round up the others for me?" Itachi asked. "Yeah, I guess," he muttered and left to go round everyone up. Naruto and Itachi didn't have to wait long for everyone to start showing up. They all were quite amazed that his parents had such a large house. "Wow, I never thought your parents would have such an amazing house, Naruto," Konan stated. She was latched onto Yahiko's arm as they walked into the room where Naruto was. Nagato had died a year back. However, before he did, he managed to bring back Yahiko's soul and put it back within his body. Nagato had known for some time he wasn't going to live much longer. When Madara's control over him was broken, he poured all his time and energy into finding a way to bring Yahiko's soul back. In the end, he was able to. Nagato had known ever since he had those chakra rods embedded into his back, he had effectively shortened his lifespan greatly. That was one of the reasons he had preserved Yahiko's body. He had given Yahiko 2 more gifts before he died shortly after bringing him back. The first was the Rinnegan. The second was the Diva Realm abilities he had granted that body in the first place. Yahiko's body was in perfect shape, it was so perfectly preserved, he could even father children if he so desired. Since Nagato's passing, Yahiko was now the cage of the Rain Village. However, he was not going to involve his village in this war, only his group. His village had been trampled by war too many times, and he was not going to allow it to be so again. To his group, he was Yahiko, to others, it was Pain, leader of the Akatsuki. Also, in public, he was referred to as Pain. Yahiko didn't use the other 5 bodies. He had the chakra rods removed and the bodies buried. Konan was happy and sad at the same time. The love of her life was back, but one of her best friends was gone. "You know, Konan, there are a few rooms with king-size beds, I'm sure you will want one of those," Naruto said suggestively. Konan blushed heavily, she knew what Naruto was getting at. Yahiko had a little bit of pink on his cheeks. He was trying not to show how embarrassed he felt by that comment. It's not as if their relationship was a secret to anyone in the group. They just felt a bit embarrassed when they started talking about it like that. Naruto looked at Haiden. The man was still as foul-mouthed as ever, even after the 5 years he had known him. The man probably wasn't going to change anytime soon. His sight turned to Kisum, who was walking up the stairs to find a room. The man was a constant. Well, constant in the fact he loved to shred stuff with his sword and act like a raging psychopath. Naruto looked at Kakuzu. He wasn't too sure what his obsession with money was about, but he sure had it bad. Naruto noticed Madara was busy messing with his clay. That guy really loved to blow things up with his jutsu. Naruto had to admit, a little destruction here and there was interesting, but not to the extent Madara liked it. Sasori was making his way up the stairs. Sasori was a perfectionist. He had an odd obsession with being on time as well as everyone else being on time. He loved his puppets, whether it is in combat or as a hobby. Naruto saw Itachi wandering into the kitchen. He had to admit, Itachi was a hard guy to read. He hid everything very well. He was one of the most powerful fighters in the Akatsuki. And it wasn't just because of his Sharingan. Naruto looked around, but he didn't see Zetsu. He figured that guy was probably looking at the various plant life on the estate, as he was basically half plant himself. He also has a split personality, quite literally. It truly made it hard to have a normal conversation, with it becoming awkward when the other half started to butt in. Naruto would never admit it, but this was probably the closest thing he ever had to a family. The organization was filled with killers and murderers, but he could count on them for anything. Naruto walked up the stairs. He had yet to visit the master bedroom. He arrived in front of a room with double doors. He opened them to see his parents' room. He saw some pictures on the nightstand. He picked one up, it was of his mother and father. He had found out some years back who his parents were, however he was never able to find out what his mother looked like until now. The two of them looked exceedingly happy in the picture. He didn't resent or hate his father for what he did, as he knew he had little choice. The villagers were to blame for not following the last wish of his father. Then again, after a while, he couldn't blame them either. Yet he still hated the villagers for how he was treated in the past. The event 5 years ago flashed in his mind and his grip tightened on the picture till the glass broke. Naruto sighed, he took off his cloak and long-sleeved t-shirt that was underneath it. Many scars were revealed on his back and chest. On his shoulders stretching down midway to his elbows on both arms were what looked like tattoos. The fact was they were far more than that. They were an extremely complex seal that Naruto himself had made. He also had a very complex set of seals on both wrists as well. Naruto heard someone enter the room. He turned to see Itachi and Yahiko standing there. "What do you guys need?" Naruto asked as he unstrapped his ninjato. "Nothing, actually. We just came to check up on you. Is that a problem?" Itachi asked. "No, not really," Naruto replied. "I see you finally completed that time-space ninjutsu you were working on," Yahiko stated. He was referring to the seals on his upper arms. "Although I don't know what those ones on your wrists are about." "Oh, these? That's a surprise for later," he replied. "If you're wondering, no, I didn't leave behind any notes on any of these. This jutsu is far too powerful to leave to the next generation. They will go with me when I finally meet my end. Better that way, I suppose. Time-space ninjutsu should never have been made in the first place. And yours even surpasses the one your father had made. In some aspects, it does. In others, it doesn't. So were you testing it out while moving around the village earlier today?" Itachi asked. "Yeah, I still need a lot more practice if I'm actually going to make it combat worthy. That hard to control?" Itachi asked. "Yeah. Well, I suppose we will let you get some rest. Tsunade wants to see us in a few hours. She says it's important and she wants a few of us there and you're coming with us," Yahiko stated. "Yay for me," Naruto said sarcastically. Itachi and Yahiko left the room as so Naruto could get a few hours of rest before they had to go out again. Naruto fell onto the bed and quickly passed out. He was really tired from today's emotional events and those 7.5 bottles of sake he drank. He fell asleep on his bed with a few things on his mind. One of them concerned a certain Hyuga girl. With Hinata. Hinata was grading some papers Iruka had asked her to. She had been spaced out all day since her encounter with the Akatsuki member. She had talked with Iruka about him and she got the feeling he was keeping something from her. She just sighed and got back to grading the papers in front of her. She looked up when she heard the door in front of her open. She saw Sakura Haruno walk in and drop some papers off on her desk. It looked like Sakura wanted to say something but decided against it when she received a fierce glare from Hinata. Hinata hadn't spoken to Sakura in 5 years, ever since she hurt Naruto. Every time she saw Sakura, it made her think of Naruto. She never got the chance to tell Naruto how she felt about him because of her. Hinata hated Sakura for that and would never forgive her. Hinata promised herself if she ever got to see Naruto again, she would tell him how she felt about him. Of course, she didn't realize she already had. Sakura hung her head low as she exited Hinata's classroom. The glare she had received had not wavered in 5 years and cut deeper than the sharpest blade. It had been like this since that fateful day when she drove Naruto away. After that event, no one would talk to Sakura except Kiba. However, she didn't like him anyways. It took Sakura over 3 years to get her old friends to talk to her again, but still, even after 5 long years, Hinata had never forgiven her. Hinata had never even spoken to her once in those 5 years since she drove Naruto away. Chapter 2. Naruto awoke only an hour after he had laid down to rest. He had so many things on his mind he couldn't really sleep. Naruto sat up in his bed as thoughts raced through his mind. He didn't know what to do right now. He could easily conceal his identity till the war was over. Naruto knew Tsunade wouldn't allow anyone to speak about what was said or seen in the council meeting. So he was free to keep his identity from those he once knew. But there was this feeling in the pit of his stomach that had been there since his talk with Hinata. He didn't know what it was, as he had never felt anything like it before. Naruto got out of bed and put on his black long-sleeved t-shirt and plain black cloak. He grabbed his ninjato and strapped them back on under the cloak. He grabbed his hat as he left and put it on. Naruto decided he would keep his identity from his old friends for the time being. Naruto walked out of the master bedroom to see the other Akatsuki members lounging about. Naruto decided to go for a walk. He had some time before he needed to be anywhere. Naruto walked out the front door of the estate to see Zetsu still observing the plant life. Naruto sighed, that guy was seriously weird sometimes. Naruto walked out of the estate. Where he was going, he really didn't know. Naruto just picked a direction and started walking. Naruto began to walk thinking about how so very little had actually changed while he was gone. He soon found himself at his old apartment complex. Naruto noticed it was in a lot better shape than he remembered it last. Naruto soon left to see other parts of the village. Naruto walked through the market district of the village. He saw Choji Akimichi pigging out in the beef house, while Ino Yamanaka and Shikamaru Nara just sat there talking. Naruto saw Ichiraku's. He couldn't help but smile a bit at seeing that they were still in business. He walked over and sat down on one of the stools. Old man Tucci walked up. "What can I get you?" "The normal," Naruto replied without thinking. "What now?" Tucci asked. "Oh right, it's been some time since I've been to this place," Naruto muttered. 2 bowls of miso with beef. "Your order will be done shortly." Naruto noticed that, unlike most in the village, old man Tucci didn't seem afraid or cautious around an Akatsuki member. Then again, Naruto could never remember a time when something was able to scare the old man. You know, you sound very familiar, the old man said as he cooked. Do I now? Who exactly do I sound like? Naruto asked. You sound like my best customer, but he disappeared 5 years ago. And who exactly was that? Gucci sighed, his name was Naruto Uzumaki. Gucci finished and placed the ramen in front of the Akatsuki member. Naruto couldn't help but chuckle at what Tucci said. He lifted up his hat so Tucci could see under it. Well, old man, it's been some time, hasn't it? Naruto? Tucci was stunned. He honestly never thought he would see Naruto again. Yep, so how have you been? Naruto asked as he began to eat the ramen. Just fine these past 5 years. What are you doing with the Akatsuki? Keep your voice down, old man, I really don't want everyone knowing it's me just yet. I see. Tucci sat down on a stool that he had on his side. So how have you been? I can't really complain I guess. This stuff is just as good as I remember it, Naruto stated as he was now on his second bowl. So where is Ayam? Oh, she's off with some friends at the moment. She'll be back sometime later today. Naruto finished his second bowl in record time. Well, I suppose I'll be back later today then. Naruto paid for the ramen and stood up. Oh, and don't tell anyone it's me. I'd rather like to keep my identity unknown for the time being. Of course, just be sure to drop by soon. You can count on it, old man. Gucci was never one to smile, but right now he couldn't help but do just that. Naruto found himself at the academy once again. He didn't plan on it, he just walked in a random direction from the ramen stand and ended up here. He heard someone practicing throwing something. He jumped the academy wall to see that Sora had just started practicing again. Sora reminded him of himself when he was younger, training for hours after the academy let out. She must be waiting for Hinata, he thought. Naruto watched and noticed she wasn't throwing the kunai correctly. She could throw them easily enough, but her accuracy was off because of what she was doing. He decided to make himself known. You're throwing them wrong. Sora stopped and spun around to see Naruto standing behind her. Her eyes widened and she started to back up. Are you afraid of me, little girl? Yes, Sora answered, her voice a little shaky. Well, that's an honest answer if I've ever heard one. Before anything else could be said, Hinata came out of the building. I'm sorry I'm a bit late, Sora, there was more paperwork than I had expected. Hinata stopped when she saw that Akatsuki member from earlier. What, may I ask, are you doing here? What Hinata had said to him earlier that day rushed to his mind and he froze for a moment before speaking. Oh, me? Well, I was walking by when I heard this young girl practicing. So I decided to say hello. Hinata looked at him skeptically. Hinata just sighed and shrugged it off. She walked over to Sora and began to show her how to throw the kunai again. Watch carefully, Sora. Watch how I throw it. Hinata threw the kunai, hitting the bullseye. Sora had watched what Hinata had done, she threw the kunai this time and hit the target. Sora didn't hit the bullseye, but she hit the target. She started to cheer at her own success. Sora picked up the other kunai and began to practice. Hinata smiled as she watched Sora practice. Naruto, the entire time, had been watching Hinata from up in one of the trees. He had hopped up into the tree once Hinata had focused her attention on teaching Sora. There were many thoughts going through his head as he watched her. One of them being, would Hinata still love a person like me if she knew all the things I've done? Naruto had done many jobs over the years he wasn't proud of, but he did them to have the money to survive. Missions that included kidnapping, assassinations, and even a mission that had required him to exterminate a group of people. Even he was ashamed of himself now after he had done those things. But back then they were just jobs. Just a way to survive as a rogue ninja. He was brought out his thoughts by Kiba Inuzuka, who came walking towards Hinata. He hadn't changed much, still had that grin on his face. The only real difference Naruto could make out was that Kiba was taller. He watched from the tree to see how things were about to play out. Kiba, I told you never to bother me here, Hinata stated. Her tone was none too pleasant as Sora flinched. And why can't I come and bother my fiancé? Kiba asked. Because I don't like you, and the only way you were able to get me to marry you was through my father, Hinata said nonchalantly. Doesn't matter if you like me or not. You will be mine eventually. No, Kiba, I will never be yours, even if we get married, as you will never touch me, regardless of what my father wants. Hinata's tone was neutral, but anyone could tell she was serious. Now Sora, how about we get some ramen? Hinata said in a cheerful voice with a smile on her face. Yay. Sora cheered. Sora grabbed Hinata's hand and the two of them began to walk off. Kiba was furious. He stood there in his silent rage until he ran after them. Just as he was about to grab Hinata's shoulder, he stopped as there was now the blade of a ninjato against his neck. Not so fast. You heard the pretty lady, Naruto said in a low, threatening tone. Hinata and Sora turned around to see the Akatsuki member restraining Kiba. Do you know who I am? Kiba yelled. Of course I do. Kiba Inuzuka, head of the Inuzuka clan. However, here's a fun fact for you. I don't give a shit. You see, the village needs me and my group more than they need you. Naruto's voice was low, threatening, and deadly serious. Naruto would like nothing more than to lop Kiba's head right off. Beads of sweat rolled off Kiba, he knew he was in serious trouble if he pissed the guy off. He had gotten reports of an Akatsuki member that wielded two ninjato. From the reports he knew the man was cold and unforgiving. Akatsuki-san, as much as I wouldn't disagree with you killing him, I'd prefer you didn't. I can deal with him myself if I have to. I don't need people fighting my battles for me. Naruto removed his sword from Kiba's neck. If that is what you want then so be it. The council will hear of this. Kiba yelled as he backed away. I would not make idle threats if I were you, Kiba Inuzuka. I let you off with a warning, but do it again and I'll remove that head of yours. Kiba backed off and left the academy mumbling obscenities. Naruto turned around to face Hinata. He saw Sora was cowering behind Hinata. Naruto sighed and began to walk away when he was stopped by Hinata. Why did you help me like that? Hinata asked. She was truly curious as to why an Akatsuki member would help her. Now isn't that the 1,000,000 Ryo question? He said as he disappeared in a flash of red light. Sora began to tug on Hinata's sleeve. Hinata looked down at Sora, who only said one word. Raymond. Hinata couldn't help but smile at the girl. She could be so cute when she wanted to. Yes of course. On to Ichiraku's, then, she said to the smiling girl. While they were walking to Ichiraku's, Hinata couldn't help but think that man's voice sounded familiar. Where have I heard that voice before? Hinata mumbled as she walked with Sora. Something wrong? Sora asked. No, nothing's wrong. Just thinking about something, that's all. Sora just smiled as she walked with Hinata. They soon arrived at Ichiraku's raiment stand. They found that Akatsuki member sitting at the one of the stools talking with AM. Hinata was looking at them curiously. It looked as if they knew one another. Sora looked a little worried now. It's alright Sora, go take a seat. He won't hurt you, Hinata said, reassuring Sora everything was fine. Sora walked over and took the seat farthest away from Naruto. Hinata decided to sit right next to him at the stand. The two of them placed their orders. A few minutes passed in complete silence. AM had stopped talking with the Akatsuki member since Hinata and Sora had sat down. So tell me, what's your relationship with that girl? Naruto asked, pointing to Sora. Sora. Well, 2 years ago, I found her wandering the streets. I found out that she had no family or a place to stay. Since I was living on my own, I took her in. Shortly after, I found out she had what it took to be a ninja, so I enrolled her at the academy. Why are you asking, anyhow? Oh, no reason. Just trying to start a conversation, I suppose, Naruto said turning his head till it faced Hinata. Hinata saw his blue eyes under the hat and her heart felt like it had stopped. She hadn't seen eyes like those since Naruto. Hinata couldn't help but get lost in his eyes. A light pink blush formed on her face when AM came over and put her order in front of her, snapping her out of her daze. She began to eat her ramen, but she couldn't figure out what was wrong with her. Why did she feel nervous all of a sudden? Hinata looked back over to find that the Akatsuki member was already gone. Hinata looked over at Sora who was eating her ramen without a care in the world. Naruto was now standing on a roof near the ramen stand. Well, are you going to tell her, Naruto? Naruto turned around to see Itachi standing behind him. Wait you damn it, get your ass out here, Zetsu. They made me do it, said the white half. Yeah, right. You volunteered, dumbass. The dark half remarked. Shut up. The wild half yelled. Both of you shut up. I'm not in the mood to hear you two arguing. So how much do you know? Itachi smirked under his hat. Oh, I know everything since you left us at the front gate. Damn it, Nai-chan, mind your own business. Naruto yelled. So, why aren't you going to tell her yet? I don't know, I really don't know what to do. Part of me wants to, but the other part just wants to stay closed off. Well, you might want to make your decision soon. That girl doesn't have all that much time left to wait for you to make up your mind. Now, Tsunade wishes to speak with us about a few matters. With that said, Itachi disappeared in a swirl of leaves. Naruto looked back, taking one last look at Hinata before disappearing in a red flash. They both appeared in the Hokage's office. Tsunade looked like she was waiting for them. Tsunade fixed the papers on her desk into a neat pile. Naruto looked to see Yahiko and Konan sitting in the seats in front of Tsunade's desk. Ah, Naruto and Itachi are here. Now we can begin, Yahiko stated. So we aren't waiting for the other members? Tsunade asked. No. Naruto and Itachi are from this village, so they're the only ones really needed. The other members will just go along with what is decided, Yahiko replied. Very well, Pain. As of right now, the contract is still being looked over, even though I see no problem, and neither do the clan leaders. The rest of the Shinobi Council wishes to look it over and discuss it. Why exactly? Naruto asked. As much as I want to just sign and pass it now, I want the others to be able to look it over in detail. Even though in the end it won't change anything and will be signed as is. I'm just trying to keep the peace in these troubling times. Understandable, Itachi stated. So for the next 2 days or so, Akatsuki will be stuck inside the village. The cages from the Sand and Mist villages will be arriving a few days after. I've already talked with both of them about this arrangement. Both of them are a little troubled by it, but they understand the necessity of this alliance. So I get to see my old friend Gaara, Naruto mused. Is that all you require of us at the present time, Lady Tsunade? Itachi asked. Yes, that's the only matter I wish to discuss with you at the moment. Once the papers are signed, we can assign you to teams that you think would be best. Well, if that's all, I'm going to wander some more around the village, Naruto said before disappearing in a flash of red light. Naruto appeared right outside of the Hokage Tower and just started walking. Soon enough Naruto found himself walking down the familiar alleyways and streets to where he used to live. He looked at the apartment building to see it had been refurbished since his time there. Naruto sighed and walked off back into the busy streets. The villagers gave Naruto a wide berth as he walked through the streets. Naruto soon found himself in front of the Hyuga compound. He walked up to the front gate, but the two guards blocked his entrance. You cannot enter, one of them stated. Just go tell Hiashi there is an Akatsuki member who wants to see him, Naruto stated. The elder of the two guards motioned his head for the other guard to inform Hiashi. Naruto watched the Hyuga guard disappear into his state. Naruto waited for several minutes until the guard finally came back out. Hiashi-sama has instructed me to escort you to him. Lead the way, Naruto replied. They walked through the estate until they came to Hiashi's office. The guard opened the door allowing the Akatsuki member to step inside. Naruto walked into the room and saw Hiashi sitting there looking at something. The guard closed the door and left. Well, Naruto, I wasn't really expecting a visit from you, Hiashi stated without looking up from what he was doing. Hiashi looked at Naruto. I know you've already been in contact with my daughter and I'm sure that subject is what brought you here. Yes, I have seen and talked with her. I've also heard she is living with a girl named Sora that she picked up off the streets. I know about that. However, Sora isn't what you want to talk about now, is it? Why are you forcing her to marry Kiba? You know that dog doesn't want her for anything other than her body. I already know what Kiba wants. I've had him watched ever since the marriage contract was signed. Why exactly? It doesn't make any kind of sense. My daughter has found no interest in any man other than yourself, Naruto. The elders want her married off to someone of high prestige, even though my daughter has stepped down as heir and since then, moved out of this estate. She is 18 and still a part of this clan, and the elders thought it was time she get married. To someone she doesn't even remotely like from what I've seen. Yes, well, there is a fail-safe in the marriage contract I had Kiba sign. The contract states I can nullify the contract before the marriage if I see probable cause. I've watched Kiba for the past week since its signing. I truly have no intention of letting Kiba marry my daughter. I will nullify the contract next week before the marriage. That's pretty cold. Yes, well, I rather dislike Kiba's attitude towards my daughter. Even if it might not seem like it, I do care for my daughter and what she wants. However, what she wants is you. Yes, I already know that. So, Naruto Namikaze, what do you want? I really don't know. I mean, Hinata's very good-looking, kind, caring, smart and strong. She's basically any man's dream. As blunt as you were 5 years ago, I see. Time changes a lot of things, but not everything. Very true. Before they could continue this conversation, Neji walked into the room. He stopped just as he entered the room, seeing Hiashi talking to a member of the Akatsuki. Something you need, Neji? Hiashi asked. No, I was just coming to inform you I was back from my mission, uncle. Ah, very good. I take it everything went smoothly. Of course. Very good. Neji left the room, leaving Naruto and Hiashi in the room alone once again. I see Neji no longer has his seal. When Hinata left, she requested that he take her place as heir to the clan. I'm sure my daughter said that so I would remove the cage bird seal on his forehead. Although I have to say, it was really the only way for it to be done without the council being up in arms over the matter. Just so you know, no one outside of the clan knows this fact, so I hope you will keep it to yourself. Of course. So how long do I have to think about your offer? Naruto knew Hiashi was getting at something when he asked Naruto what he wanted. A single week is your time frame, Naruto. Not a whole lot of time. You'll have my answer either before or by that time then. Naruto disappeared in a flash of light once he was finished talking. With Hinata and Sora. Hinata and Sora had just arrived back at their apartment. The place wasn't anything special. It had 2 bedrooms which were of a decent size. Hinata had bought normal furniture, none of the fancy stuff that she was used to in the Hyuga compound. Hinata had the money to buy such things, of course, it's just she had no use for such fancy things, she never had. Hinata sat down on the couch. She had been distracted ever since she saw that Akatsuki member's eyes. Those eyes reminded her of Naruto. Hinata hadn't noticed, but Sora was trying to talk to her. Hinata-nichan? Sora asked as she waved a hand in front of Hinata's face. Hinata finally snapped out of it. I'm sorry, Sora. Did you need something? Hinata asked. I was just wondering why you were spacing out since the raiment stand. Were you thinking about that Naruto guy again? When you talked about him earlier, you seemed to have liked him a lot. Hinata just sighed. Sora had hit the nail on the head with that comment. I still do like him a lot, Sora. But you said he went rogue 5 years ago after bringing the Uchiha back. And the Uchiha left again shortly after he was healed. At least that's what Iruka says. I really don't care if he went rogue, Sora. Naruto-kun was driven out of the village by his other teammate, Sakura Haruno. Although, that isn't too widely known. Now, enough about this subject. Go do your homework. Sora could tell Hinata didn't want to talk anymore, even if she didn't sound upset or angry. She just went off into her room to do her homework. Hinata heard a knock at the door. She walked over to the door and saw an Anbu member at the door. I've been informed to tell you that you're being called back to active duty. Hinata sighed. Thanks Tenten, I mean Anbu-san. Although it's against protocol, just refer to me by my name, Hinata. Well, come in for a bit. I haven't talked with either you or Niji in quite some time. Tenten took off her mask and walked into Hinata's home. Tenten sat on the couch across from Hinata. So Hinata, how have you been? Could be better, I guess, Hinata said in a low depressed tone. Yeah. Niji and I just got back earlier today to find out about you being engaged to Kiba. You know Niji wasn't too happy when he heard about that. Hinata sighed. There's nothing he can do about it. Tenten looked at Hinata. Even if she was marrying Kiba, she seemed far too depressed. You're thinking about Naruto again, aren't you? Hinata gave a sad smile as she looked down at her hands that were in her lap. Hinata, he's been gone for 5 years now. When are you going to move on? I just can't, Tenten. Tenten let out an exasperated sigh. Well, one of these days you will see he isn't coming back. Oh, on another note, I've heard you've been seeing a certain Akatsuki member ever since he arrived today. Hinata raised an eyebrow. What are you talking about? Well, I mean he came to the academy twice and you met him at Ichiraku's. Did he ask you out or something? Tenten had a big smile on her face. She knew nothing was going on, but she hoped this would change Hinata's mood. A light pink blush appeared on Hinata's face. It's not what it looks like, Hinata stammered out. Oh, I know, I was just trying to change the mood is all. They heard a knock at the door all of a sudden. Do you think that's Niji? Hinata asked. Probably. I was supposed to only give you the message and go meet him, Tenten replied. Well, I should get going anyhow. Just remember to report to the Hokage's office tomorrow, alright? Hinata nodded. Alright. I'm sorry Hinata. I know you wanted to be a teacher, and all Tenten said as she opened the door to see it was in fact Niji. Tenten smiled and left with Niji after they both said their farewells. Niji and Tenten had both become Anbu a year ago and have been out on month-long assignments since then. Hinata just stood at the doorway for a while. Everyone she knew seemed to have what they wanted, except for her. Even Sakura was dating someone now. That was something Hinata thought the pink-haired woman didn't deserve. Hinata sighed and went into her room. She sat down on the bed and pulled out a picture from the drawer next to the bed. The picture was of the Rookie 9, plus Niji, his team, and Tsunade and Jiraiya. Hinata was standing next to Naruto, blushing fiercely. The picture itself was taken shortly after Naruto and Jiraiya had come back to the village with Tsunade. Hinata put the picture back inside the drawer and closed it. She looked out the window to see the sun was finally setting, signifying the day was finally ending. But Itachi and Zetsu, I told you, I don't want to follow Naruto around anymore, Zetsu's white half said. What, scared or something? Taunted the black half. Damn right. I don't want to die. Yelled the white half. Anzi, the black half muttered. So you mean to tell me you don't want to follow Naruto around to see that hot little number he's going after? Unlike Haiden, we don't stay alive after our head is chopped off. Chicken shit. They both felt someone directly behind them. Both black and white Zetsu froze, realizing that Naruto was here now. How long has he been here? Asked the white half. Not me, but I think we're screwed, replied the black half. He's been standing there since the hot little number part, as you so eloquently put it, Itachi said answering their question, then taking a sip of his tea. Itachi got up and began to exit the room. Wait, Itachi, where are you going? They both cried out. Well, I was going to go get some dinner, he said before disappearing out the doorway. Please don't hurt me. Itachi made me do it. The white half cried. If you do something for me, I'll forget about the incident, Naruto stated. We'll do it. Yelled the white half. I want to know what it is we're doing before we agree to anything, said the black half. We're agreeing. I don't want to die. Nope. All you two have to do is follow Hinata if she leaves the village. Just follow her and keep out of sight and report to me if anything should happen to her. Then I will take care of the rest. The two didn't bother asking questions about why he wanted them to do this job. Do we get paid? Asked the black half. Yes. A small amount of payment and my word that I won't chop you into small pieces for that comment earlier or the fact you followed me around the village. We'll do it, said both halves. In an unknown location, the room was in complete darkness except for the one dim light in the middle of the table. We can't just hand Kumo an unsealed Byakugan wielder. One of the figures yelled. If we hand one over to them, they will pull out of the war. At a later time we can eliminate the Byakugan wielder and any offspring they may have had. Although we only have one candidate who doesn't currently have a seal, the second figure said, throwing a file and picture into the dim light for all to see. The picture was of Hinata Hyuga. Chapter 3. 2 days had passed since Naruto and the rest of the Akatsuki had arrived. They hadn't done anything other than sit around the village so far. Naruto did his own thing by wandering around the village to kill time. The other members did very much the same thing, except they spent more time at the Namika's estate. Naruto spent very little time there. Other than when he slept, he wasn't there at all. While Naruto had been wandering the village, he would randomly bump into Hinata and strike up a conversation. Although, to some, it didn't seem random at all. Shikamaru, Neji, and Shino were getting annoyed. He seemed to be getting too friendly with Hinata in their eyes. Naruto was sitting in a bar, drinking some sake. It was around 3 in the afternoon. Hinata had left half an hour ago on a mission. Naruto didn't know what the mission was, and he really didn't care, since Setsu was watching her now. The bar was very quiet while he was in there. He didn't try to quiet them by any means, they were just like that since he walked in. Naruto heard a group of people enter the bar. He knew exactly who they were. It was Shino, Shikamaru, and Neji. Naruto just smirked as they walked up behind him. The people that were in the bar quickly cleared out. Even the bar's owner made his way out of the bar. So, to whom do I owe the pleasure of this visit? Naruto asked without turning around. Do you have any idea what we are doing here? Neji asked. I might, but do enlighten me, Neji Hyuga, Naruto stated as he poured more sake for himself. We are here to tell you to stop talking with Hinata Hyuga. We all dislike the fact that you're speaking with her, he stated. Are you now? How interesting, I always figured Hinata would be the one to tell me to leave her be. I have the feeling she doesn't know that you're doing this. She doesn't seem like the type to let others deal with problems for her. If we must, we will use force, Neji stated. Naruto turned around on the bar stool. Really? You'll force me to stop, will you? That is an interesting threat. Even if you are the best of your generation, do you really think you can? Neji, Tsunade told us not to do anything, Shikamaru stated. Shikamaru is correct, Tsunade said we were not allowed to start a fight with the unknown Akatsuki member, Shino stated. You three will leave now. They turned around to see Jiraiya standing in the doorway. Come on, Neji, it's troublesome to stay any longer, Shikamaru muttered. Fine, I'll leave. The three of them quickly left the bar, shutting the door behind them. Jiraiya walked over and sat next to Naruto. It's been 5 years, Naruto. How have you been? I can't exactly complain, pervy sage. Jiraiya grumbled. Can't you for once call me by my name? Nope, you will now and forever been known as the pervy sage. If I ever have kids, they too will call you pervy sage, Naruto stated proudly. I figured you would stop by the estate sooner. Oh, well, sorry about that. I only got back into the village about an hour ago, you see. I stopped by to find that you were out wandering around the village. I saw a bunch of people leaving the street, so I figured you were here. Now what was that all about with those three? Oh them? They don't like the fact I'm talking with Hinata. So they don't know who you are then? Nope. None of them do. Not even Hinata knows yet. Jiraiya sighed, he knew why Naruto was keeping himself hidden. Naruto, Hinata's in love with you. Naruto took a sip of sake. I know. Then why haven't you told her that you're back yet? Do you know all the things I've done over the past 5 years? I've done some bad things, pervy sage. If she ever found out, she wouldn't love me. I don't want to be hurt again. You don't know that, kid, don't compare her to Sakura. Naruto did his best to stall his anger at the mention of that pink-haired woman's name. Don't mention that woman again. Right, sorry about that. I'm just saying, Hinata isn't anything like her. Yeah, I've come to realize that as of late. I have plans to tell her once she got back from her current mission. The two sat in silence for a time, not knowing what else to talk about. Jiraiya reached back behind the bar and pulled out something to drink. He pulled out some money for the drink before opening it. Jiraiya took a sip of his drink before speaking. Why the Akatsuki? Jiraiya asked. I don't want to sound like I'm judging you or anything, Naruto, not that I have the right anymore, but they tried to kill you once. I suppose they did. Naruto told him the story of how Itachi and Kisame found him shortly after he left the village. Also how they needed him to draw Madara out into the open so they could put their plans into action. And finally, the deal he made with Kisame and Itachi if their plans worked. It's not like I had too many options, Jiraiya. I really didn't have much to lose by trusting them. The two sat there and started to talk about various things. Naruto's parents came up once or twice. The conversation switched to somewhat more recent events, like what Naruto's friends were doing over the past 5 years. A rather large crowd was soon gathering outside of the bar, just looking. At the Namika's mansion, Haiden, Sasori, Kakuza, Kisame, Deidara and Itachi were playing a game of poker in the living room of the estate. They had been doing this for a good 3 hours as they were still waiting for the document to be signed by the Hokage. They were trying to ignore the noises coming from upstairs. However, when they heard a loud moan, someone had to make a comment. "You know, it's kind of hard to play poker when they're doing it upstairs," Kisame muttered. "Don't sugarcoat. Just say it, they're having wild sex up in their room," Haiden said bluntly. Colorful language is always Haiden. "2 cards, please," Itachi said, putting 2 cards face down. It's not like they had many chances to be together until now. "He's right, but I wish they could do that stuff a little more quietly," Kakuza said as he looked at his cards. 4 cards, he said, showing that he had an ace in his hand. "I really don't care. It doesn't bother me," Sasori said, rather pleased with his hand. "You're a damn puppet. Why would it bother you?" Kisame stated. "I call," Deidara said, throwing some of his chips in the center. "What do you all have?" "I fold," Kisame stated, throwing his cards face down. "4 aces," Kakuza stated proudly. "Damn, got me beat," Haiden and Sasori said at the same time. "Shit, lost again." Deidara whined. "He had 3 of a kind. Straight flush," Itachi stated. He laid his cards out for them all to see. "Son of a bitch. You always win." Kakuza yelled. "Well, he doesn't always win. At least not when Naruto's here," Deidara stated as he shuffled the cards. "Yeah, that kid has the devil's luck or something," Kisame replied. "I would have to say he has luck in some things, but no luck in others. I mean his life was pretty shitty till he helped us then decided to stay," Kakuza said as he looked at his cards that Deidara had just dealt. "Yeah, I suppose that's true. Hey, you guys want to make a bet about when Naruto and that hot Hinata Hyuga get together?" Deidara asked. "Sure, why not?" Sasori replied. They all placed bets on dates and times of their choosing. Of course, only one of them would win the bet. The prize for the winner was 3,000 ryo. But Naruto had finished his chat with Jiraiya and was now walking to the ramen stand. He had planned to meet Iruka there for a little chat and some ramen. Naruto couldn't pass up free ramen. Naruto arrived at the ramen stand to see Iruka and Kakashi Haddock sitting down. Naruto walked over and sat down at one of the seats. "It's been a while, Naruto," Kakashi stated. "I suppose it has, Kakashi. I take it Iruka told you?" "No, Tsunade told me when I returned from my mission earlier today. I met up with Iruka and tagged along to this meeting." "I see. So what have you been up to for the past 5 years, Kakashi? Hopefully you actually got past your issues and finally started dating again." "I've had a decent life since you left," he replied. "Addy." They all turned to see a small girl no older than 3 years old with shoulder-length silver hair run up to Kakashi. He picked her hand and set her down on his lap. "Rin, where's your mother?" "I'm right here, Kakashi, our daughter wanted to see you." They all looked to see Kurenai walking over to them in a blood-red kimono. "I'm sorry I didn't come home. I had something rather important to do," Kakashi said apologetically to his wife as she sat down next to him at the ramen stand. "You should be apologizing to your daughter, not me," she replied. Naruto got up and started to walk away. "Wait, Naruto, I still wanted to talk." "We can talk some other time, Kakashi," Naruto replied before disappearing in a flash of red light. Kurenai's eyes widened. "Was that really Naruto?" "Yeah," Iruka replied. "What's a Naruto?" Rin asked. They couldn't help but smile at Rin's question. Kakashi patted his daughter on the head. "She could be so cute. Naruto is a man and a friend of your father's. Now are you hungry?" Kurenai asked her daughter. "I want to go to that place where we put the meat on the fire," Rin said happily. Kurenai looked at Kakashi who shrugged. "The barback place it is," Kurenai stated. "Sorry, Iruka, I suppose I ruined your chat with Naruto," Kakashi said as he put his daughter on his shoulders. "It's alright Kakashi. I can always talk to him later," Iruka replied. "Come on daddy, let's go." "Mush." Kurenai couldn't help but giggle at her daughter. Rin was gripping her father's hair to direct him where to go. The 3 of them left quickly in the direction of the barback restaurant, mainly because Kakashi liked his hair. Iruka just chuckled as he watched the happy family walk off. Iruka felt someone sit down next to him. "He certainly has changed in the past 5 years," Naruto muttered. "Yeah, after you left, he wasn't quite himself, and then after Sasuke left, he just really didn't function. That changed about 4 years ago when Kurenai became concerned. Shortly after that, they started going out. Then she got pregnant with Rin there and the 2 of them got married before she was born. They are quite the happy family." Iruka paused for a moment. "I'm sure all he wanted to do was say he was sorry to you. I had a feeling that's what he wanted. So you still haven't told Hinata or anyone you used to know that you're back?" "No, but I will soon enough if they don't find out today." Gucci placed ramen in front of the 2. He knew what they were going to order so he didn't ask this time around, he just made it up and served them. "Did you ever regret leaving Naruto?" "Not really," Naruto replied as he started to eat his ramen. You know Naruto, I really didn't think you would be back right after they left. Well, I don't know when I was going to have another chance to just sit and talk with you. I suppose you're right. That contract will be signed today, won't it? Yep. What is the Akatsuki to you, Naruto? Naruto finished his first bowl of ramen. Well, you could say they're the closest thing I've ever had to a family. They looked out for me when I first joined them. That's good. At least you weren't alone for the past 5 years. The two talked about their lives for the past 5 years. Iruka asked Naruto questions about the Akatsuki members, and Naruto asked Iruka about married life once he found out Iruka was married to Anko. The conversation drifted towards Naruto's old friends. It seemed most of them were dating now. Ino and Chaoji had been dating for the past year. Niji and Tenten were talking about getting married. Even Shino had a girlfriend now, she really liked bugs. Iruka wasn't too sure about Shikamaru's love life. Although Naruto knew about his love life but wasn't about to say anything about that. Naruto was angered to hear Sakura was dating Rock Lee. He thought the pink-haired bitch deserved to be alone for her entire life. And he already knew about Hinata and Kiba. But the Haddock family. Rin was watching the meat sizzle on the grill as she sat next to her mother. I couldn't see his face, but Naruto seemed so different, so much colder than he used to be, Kurenai stated as she sipped her tea. Kakashi sighed. I know. I do miss the old hyperactive and cheerful boy he used to be. They both watched their daughter play with the meat on the grill. They had only seen Naruto for about a minute, but the cold aura he gave off was so much different than the happy cheerful one he once had. One good thing did come out of him leaving the village, though, Kurenai said with a happy smile as she patted her daughter on the head. Kakashi couldn't help but smile under the mask he always wore. Marrying Kurenai and having Rin was one of the only good things that came of Naruto leaving the village. Rin, if you stop playing with the meat it will cook faster, Kurenai said in a sweet tone. But, no buts, Kurenai replied. Rin made a cute little pout as she hated waiting for the meat to cook. A few minutes later, the meat was finished. Rin was happily eating her food while her parents talked to one another. You know, Hinata would be heartbroken if Naruto rejects her, Kurenai said with a sigh. Kakashi just looked at his food before responding. Yeah, she would be devastated. The two of them stopped talking and just ate their meal. 15 minutes later, they were all done eating. Kakashi paid for the bill and they were off. The family of 3 walked out of the restaurant in the direction of their home. Naruto watched from a rooftop as the 3 of them walked home. He finished talking with Iruka a short time ago. Naruto sighed, it would be at least another 8 hours till Hinata was back. Maybe then he could tell everyone. That's if one of them didn't overhear something before that, of course. There was a cool breeze blowing as it was winter. Naruto took off his hat and let breeze blow through his hair. He hadn't been able to take off his hat outside of the Namikaze estate. Naruto didn't want someone to know it was him just yet, but right now he didn't really care. Almost everyone had moved on and was either dating or married. He couldn't help but think of past events as he stood there on the rooftop. Naruto wasn't sure how long he stood there, but by the time he stopped his reminiscing the sun had begun to set. Naruto had stood there so long he was sure a lot of people had seen him by now. Sora, you can come out now. A young girl with long black hair came out from behind the wall she was hiding behind. She walked up to the blonde man hesitantly. She walked slowly towards him before stopping about 5 feet behind him. Are you really that curious to know who I am? Why yes, Sora replied. Naruto turned around and showed her his face. Sora's eyes went wide. He looked just like the boy in the picture Hinata had next to her bed. She also thought he was quite handsome. Why you're Naruto Uzumaki. Indeed I am. Now why were you stalking me most of the day? Sora fidgeted nervously as she tried to respond to his question. But Hinata seemed so distracted since she saw your eyes a few days ago. And I wanted to find out who you were so I could tell her. I see. Well, you know now. What are you going to do with your information? Are you going to go around the village and tell my former friends who I am? It's not that I particularly care at this point, as I had planned to tell them eventually. You seem so different from how Hinata described you, Sora muttered. I suppose I have changed greatly since that time. I'll tell you something, people are who they choose to be, and I chose to change. My change may have been for better or for worse. I have really yet to decide which it is. Are you going to tell Hinata you're back? I mean she. I know what Hinata wants to tell me. After all, she already told me without even knowing it a few days ago, he said, cutting her off. Why didn't you tell her you're back, then? To be honest, I just wasn't sure what to do. I've done many things over the past 5 years that I'm not proud of, and many wouldn't hesitate to hate me for said things. If you knew all the terrible things I've done, what would you do? Well, I don't know, she muttered. Exactly, that uncertainty is what has kept me from saying or doing anything. Naruto turned around to watch the sunset. Sora just stood there, not sure what to do or say at the moment. Sora could feel how lonely he was just by watching him. Hinata had never told her why Naruto left. Sora had asked Hinata a few times about it over the past few days, but Hinata would quickly change the subject. "Do you love Hinata?" she asked hesitantly. "I grew up in this village without parents or anyone to teach what love was. I used to think I knew what friendship was, but apparently I didn't know that either, seeing as my so-called best friend rammed a chidori through my chest. The villagers looked at me like was the scum of the earth for something I had no control over. I hope that answers your question." Sora just looked down at the ground. She regretted asking the question. The sun was halfway down now. He noticed Zetsu was in a tree waiting for him, but it was only his white half. "Go home, Sora, it's getting late. A young girl like yourself shouldn't be out so late or seen with someone like myself," Naruto said before he jumped away to Zetsu. "You're back a little early," Naruto stated. Zetsu fidgeted uncomfortably as he tried to work up the nerve to say what he had to report. Naruto then noticed that this was only the white half of Zetsu. I'm not sure how to say this you see Hinata is Naruto grabbed Zetsu by the throat and smashed him against a tree. "What about Hinata?" Naruto spoke in a deadly tone. You see they have her." "Who has her?" Naruto yelled as he started to choke the life out of Zetsu. "Ifyyul let MeGG go, I can tell you," Zetsu choked out. Naruto released his grip on Zetsu's throat. "Speak quickly and if you give me a good explanation I won't kill you now. I followed her like you asked." Everything was going well with checking the border towns nearest to the Kumo lines. That was until the third to last town. They were waiting for her, Naruto. They knew she was coming and set up a trap. Someone tipped them off and let them know that she was coming. I would have tried and stopped them, but there were far too many for myself to take on, seeing as I'm no good at fighting. "How many?" "At least 50 Jounin or Chunin level ninja. Hinata's team was killed easily and she was captured. I sent my other half to follow them," Zetsu said as he pulled out a map. "They are stopped here." He pointed on the map to Naruto. Zetsu was pointing to a Kumo fortress that was in one of the two countries in between the Land of Lightning and the Land of Fire. They are most likely holding her there overnight to wait for a proper escort that will reach there by early to mid-morning. My other half will delay them as much as possible if they try to move her out before you arrive. Is she hurt at all? No, they were most careful when handling her. Most likely a standing order that no one was to harm her in any way shape or form during capture or before her arrival at Kumo. Naruto did his best to keep his anger in check. He only sent Zetsu just in case. He never thought something like this would actually happen while Hinata was away from the village. Naruto just started to walk away from Zetsu saying nothing more. "Where are you going? Where do you think? Oh, and if you tell anyone where I'm going or about Hinata's current situation, I'll dice you into tiny pieces so you can't grow back." Zetsu shuddered at the thought of being diced into tiny pieces. He watched Naruto disappear into a flash of red light. But Hinata was sitting in a cell in some Kumo fortress. She had been stripped of her clothes and placed in the cell. She was glad they hadn't done anything to her yet, but she knew what was coming. She was huddled in the corner of the room. The only thing to cover her body was her long indigo hair and her limbs. She shivered a bit. The night was growing cold and it was only going to get colder. There was no bed or blankets in the cell for her to use, just the clawed stone floor. She did her best to stay warm, which was why she was in the corner of the room. It provided cover for her body from prying eyes and a way to stay warmer. This was Hinata's worst nightmare come to life. She had long since feared that an event such as this would occur and it was all because they wanted her by Byakugan. Hinata had no disillusions of what they were going to do to her. However, there was nothing she could do now to prevent it. The walls of the cell were lined with seals that were draining her chakra and physical strength. All she could hope for was that someone would come and save her. She could hear some of the guards talking about what was planned for her. She just wanted to cry right now. She knew there was little chance her village would find out she was captured before she was shipped to Kumo. A single tear rolled down her left cheek. "Someone please rescue me," Hinata whispered. Chapter 4. Naruto was outside of the village now, running at a speed even Might Guy could not keep up with for long if at all. The sun was set now and it was around 10 at night. Naruto had done his best to keep his emotions in check when he had talked to Zetsu. However, when Zetsu had said Hinata was captured, he could barely control himself. Now he was off to save her from Kumo. He berated himself. Instead of asking Zetsu to look after her, he should have been the one to do it. He picked up speed as his anger grew, although it would still take him another 3 hours till he would arrive at the fortress. What would he do if he found that they had harmed her? He really didn't know, but Kumo better pray they hadn't. Also, whoever sold her out better never become known or Naruto would give whoever it was a very slow and painful death. In an unknown location, the room was completely dark except for the small dim light in the middle of the table. A few people discussed the current issue that they had decided on a few days ago. "By now she should be at the Kumo fortress," said one of the figures. Was this truly the right decision? "We gave them one of our best female ninja," said a female voice. "Sacrifice one to save many," said another figure. "Yes, that is exactly why we came to this decision. We care for the village, but sometimes we must do things we do not want in order to save it, stated the first figure. Yes, but are you sure we did the right thing? It is truly too late to be having those types of thoughts. When the war is over, I will send my agents to take care of anything Hyuga related in Kumo, said the first figure. Yes, he's correct. It's too late to have those thoughts at this time, since she's already in their hands, said the second male figure. Now for the next order of business, the first figure said as he threw two files in the dim light. Naruto Namikaze and Itachi Uchiha are the last of their respective lines, and we must ensure they are not the last. What are we supposed to do? There's no way we can get genetic material from them by force or even if we ask, said the female figure. There is an old law that was made during the time of the first Hokage. It's called the Clan Restoration Act, or CRA for short. They are officially ninja of the village and fall under such laws. All we have to do is bring it up during the council meeting and they will have no choice, said the first figure. Little did they realize, trying something like that would most likely get them killed. However, being the arrogant pieces of trash they were, it never crossed their minds. The Noha front gate. The Uchiha were guarding the front, meaning they sat relaxed in the guardhouse when a very injured man came stumbling through the gate. The man collapsed just as he arrived at the guardhouse. The two Chunin quickly went to the man's aid. They saw that he was a Leaf Chunin that was assigned to Hinata Hyuga's team. His name was Juro. Call Lady Tsunade quick. This could be very bad, the Chunin told his partner. The other Chunin nodded and shunshined away to get the Hokage. The remaining Chunin checked the man's wounds. He seemed to have stopped most of the bleeding himself, but he looked very pale. Can you eat this, Juro? The Chunin asked. Yeah, Juro replied weakly. The Chunin gave Juro a plasma pill. Color returned to Juro's face, if only a little. Juro coughed a bit before he began to speak with what little strength he had left. You have to tell the Hokage Hinata has been captured. They knew we were coming, and they set a trap for us. Juro pulled out a map and pointed to the town they last stopped at. I managed to fool them and make myself appear dead after I had been injured. Who has heard Juro? The Chunin yelled as the man began to pass out. Kumo, Juro said as he passed out. Tsunade arrived with Shizune in tow. What's happening here? Tsunade demanded. She then noticed Juro, who was a part of Hinata's squad. She knelt down next to the man and checked his pulse. Juro was alive, but his pulse was very weak. What did he say and where is Hinata? Tsunade demanded of the gate guard. Before he passed out, Juro told me they were ambushed and where. The Chunin showed Tsunade where on the map. He said they knew they were coming, Lady Tsunade. Kumo has taken Hinata Hyuga as a prisoner. I'm assuming all other team members are deceased. Take him to the hospital now. Shizune, go to the Hyuga residence and tell Hiashi what you just heard. Then go get the Akatsuki members from the Namikaze estate. She turned to the other Chunin. You. Round up every Jounin and Chunin you can find. The three of them disappeared quickly to fulfill their orders. Tsunade just stood there with a worried look on her face. She really did like Hinata, she was a kind, caring girl that was infatuated with Naruto. Over the years she did her best to keep her safe and out of harm's way, just like with the rest of Naruto's old friends. A few minutes passed before people started showing up at the front gate. They didn't know why they were called, only that it was an order to come to the front gates of the village. As time passed, at least 100 ninja had shown up. All of Hinata's friends were at the front gate, along with their old sensei. Even Kurenai Haddock was there in ninja attire, even though she retired when Rin was born. She obviously knew this was bad considering where they were told to meet. Soon after, Hiashi and Niji arrived with 24 Hyuga members in full battle attire. The Hyuga knew why they were here at the front gate, unlike the other ninja. Hiashi had a furious look on his face. The 24 Hyuga were a little intimidated by Hiashi, as they had never seen him upset before. The normal ninja parted as the Akatsuki arrived. Everyone noticed one of their members was missing. They looked around to see many ninja were gathered here. What is the reason for this, Lady Tsunade? Yahiko asked. Some of you already know what is going on, but most of you don't. Hinata Hyuga has been captured by Kumo. Where she is, we do not know, but I am sending all of you to find out where, and if possible, recover her. Tsunade had the map that Juro had earlier. This is where they were ambushed. I'm sure they didn't cover their scent trail, so you should be able to follow them from that. And seeing as I doubt they realize we know they have her, if you travel through the night you might catch up with them. Of course, Zetsu knew where she was, but wasn't about to say anything. He wasn't ready to die just yet. Once we get to the town I should tell them, he thought. Kakashi, I'm putting you in charge of this battle group. Kakashi, you have full authority over everyone in the battle group. Is that understood? Tsunade was talking to everyone, not just Kakashi at that point. Hi. Everyone responded. No time to waste, everyone. Move. Everyone disappeared from sight as they left the village. Tsunade sighed and looked out of the front gate of the village. She wondered where Naruto was at. But Naruto 3 hours later, Naruto stood outside the fortress in the cover of the trees. He was waiting for the black half of Zetsu to come and meet him before he attacked. He looked at the fortress, they didn't seem too alert and were probably expecting their sentries to inform them when someone was coming. Naruto had killed every Kumo sentry outside of the fortress on his way here. They didn't even know their early warning people were already dead. Naruto wanted to know the numbers in the fortress, but at this rate he didn't care. Naruto was just about to take off when Zetsu popped up through the tree. "I've been waiting for like 5 minutes," Naruto said in a deadly tone. Zetsu shuddered a little. "Sorry about that. It seems Konoha is on its way. It seems a ninja from Hinata's group survived and made it back to the village. They will be here in around 5 hours, judging their current speed. Well, that's if I tell them once they arrive at the border town. Tell them where she is if you want. It doesn't matter. This place will be destroyed long before then. However, you will not tell them I am here already, understood?" "Yes, of course, I won't tell them a thing about this." "Oh, the others are with them, Naruto. I see. How many did Tsunade send after Hinata to retrieve her?" "Well, Hinata's father, her cousin Niji, and they brought about 24 other Hyuga. There are all of your old friends and acquaintances, along with around 100 other ninja under Kakashi Haddock's command. He also commands the Akatsuki and the Hyuga in the group. Now about the fortress here. Around 200 currently inside. All Jounin or Chunin class ninja." Zetsu paused for a moment, he wasn't sure if he should add this bit of information. They stripped Hinata of her clothes, they haven't violated her or anything." Zetsu just grew very quiet as Naruto's killer intent filled the area. Zetsu decided it was time to make a run for it before Naruto exploded. "I'll be going now." "Good luck," Zetsu stated before disappearing. Inside the fortress, the defenders of the Kumo fortress had no idea what would be happening any second now. They were completely unaware of a highly agitated Naruto right outside their gate. The defenders were always simply chatting about their capture of an unsealed Hyuga. Well, that's what they were talking about until a massive killer intent blanketed the area. They all looked around to find where it was coming from when the massive gates of the fortress exploded. The ninja near the gate were killed instantly as they were impaled with shrapnel. 50 cloaked figures ran through the newly destroyed gate. They ran up to the nearest ninja and, after grabbing onto them, exploded. Blood and body parts soon covered a majority of the first half of the fortress. Naruto walked through the destroyed gate. He was in no mood to show mercy. The Kumo ninja regrouped quickly and assessed the situation. "What the hell just happened?" yelled the lead ninja. "We don't know, sir," one of the Jounin responded. "How many are there?" "Just one, sir. He wears a black cloak and a straw hat. It's the demon of the Akatsuki, sir." A Chunin responded. The lead ninja's eyes widened in fear. "Everyone, use whatever jutsu you have. Just kill him," he yelled. A ninjato came flying through the air and pierced the lead ninja's skull, pinning him against the wall. "None of you will survive," Naruto said darkly. Takra arms lashed out at 6 Kumo ninja that tried to attack. They were sent flying through the various buildings inside the fortress. Naruto created 300 clones that each pulled out a ninjato and disappeared into the fortress. He heard screams of the unfortunate Kumo ninja that were surprised by the shadow clones. The Kumo realized quickly that killing the clones meant they would explode violently, killing them in the process. Naruto walked from one build to the other while his clones did their work. Body parts and blood covered the buildings and ground. He walked into the barracks to see some of the Kumo ninja trying to hide themselves. He made himself invisible and watched them to see if they would say where Hinata was located. "We have to get out of here," one of the Jounin said. "Yeah, but we can't leave without the Hyuga," another said. "We can't even get out of this building, let alone get to the opposite side of the fortress to retrieve her." "Thank you for telling me her general location," came a dark voice. Before they could respond by doing anything, blades of wind ripped through the barracks, killing everyone inside. Now that Naruto knew what half of the fortress she was being kept at, he didn't have to hold back on destroying the side. Naruto noticed that all of his clones had been dispersed and there were still around 35 Kumo ninja left. Naruto walked out of the barracks. 2 Kumo ninja came out of the darkness. Naruto spun around and sliced one of them clean in half with his remain sword. The other ninja began to back up, a look of sheer terror on his face. Naruto appeared in front of the ninja and grabbed him by the throat. "You're a demon." The ninja choked out before Naruto snapped his neck. Naruto threw the ninja to the side and continued walking. A Jounin jumped out of a building, his sword pointed at Naruto's head. Naruto quickly created a Rasengan and hit the Jounin square in the chest. The Jounin was blown through a nearby wall. Naruto guessed that the last ninja that were left in this place were the best this place had to offer. Naruto jumped straight up into the air as giant spike made of earth came out of the ground. Naruto landed on a rooftop and the remaining ninja surrounded him. "Well, you're all that's left, out of what, 200? You're a monster." One of them yelled. "I'm the monster. Who was it that was going to have a poor woman raped and used as nothing more than breeding stock?" "Oh, that's right, it's your cage. So do think before you speak when calling someone a monster. Now I will be taking the Hyuga home, whether you like it or not." The remaining ninja began to fly through hand signs. However, they never finished as Naruto created two massive Rasengan orbs and brought them down on the roof. The explosion was quite large, it destroyed the building they were standing on, along with the ones next to it. Naruto had finally lost his hat, which floated to the ground and into the middle of the fortress. Pathetic, the lot of them, Naruto muttered as he walked to the only undamaged building. The Kumo ninja had steered clear of it the entire time, and it was on the side of the fortress those other Kumo ninjas said it was. Naruto took one last look at the fortress. The place was in ruins, smoldering rubble, burning buildings, bodies and body parts everywhere, and blood in pools on the ground. Orochimaru's experiments put up more of a fight than this place, Naruto muttered before walking into the building. With Hinata was still in the corner of the cell as she had been since she arrived. For the past 10 minutes all she heard were screams and explosions outside the building she was in. Hinata had no idea what was going on, but she had hoped that someone had come for her. Hinata couldn't see anything as it was pitch black inside the building. She saw a light coming towards her and figured it was one of the guards coming to ogle her again. However, that wasn't the case as the figure ripped the cell door off and threw it aside. She felt fabric being draped over her body. She looked up to see a man's blue eyes and blonde hair and the whisker marks on his face. Hinata's eyes widened as she realized who it was. "Time to go, Hinata," the man said in a comforting tone. "Naruto?" Hinata asked weakly. "Yes, it's me. I came here to get you out," Naruto replied. Hinata felt herself being picked up bridal style after being wrapped in the fabric. Naruto could feel how cold she was, even through his cloak that he had wrapped around her body. Hinata just shivered in his arms, being too weak to move. Hinata just wanted to say something to him or at least hug him. She was happy to be rescued, and by Naruto of all people. However, she felt so weak and so cold she couldn't do anything other than just lay there in his arms. "It's alright, Hinata. You can sleep now, I won't let anything happen to you anymore." Those words were just what Hinata needed to hear. She soon passed out in his arms after hearing what he had said. Naruto held her close to him as he exited the building. He exited what was left of the fortress through one of the large holes his exploding shadow clones had made. Naruto wasn't going to head back to the village yet. He was going to take her to one of the Akatsuki hideouts that wasn't too far away. Hinata needed time to recover from her ordeal. Of Kakashi's battle group, it had been 7 hours since they left the village. They traveled at a pace far faster than normal. Hinata's friends had led the entire time. They had only arrived in the town that Hinata was said to have been taken from. The sun had risen a few hours ago. They looked around until Hiashi noticed smoke coming from the direction of the Kumo fortress at the border. "Kakashi, look," Hiashi said as he pointed. "The fight at the Kumo fort. You think they brought her there?" Niji asked. "Don't know but we're checking it out. Everyone, let's move out," Kakashi commanded. Zetsu was getting rather nervous. His black half had come back a few hours ago. However, neither had any idea what shape Naruto left the fort in. Of course, Zetsu's nervousness didn't go unnoticed by the other Akatsuki members. 30 minutes later, they arrived to find the fort in utter ruins. Walls were blown out and the massive gate had been blown to splinters. Kakashi sent a majority of his forces to secure the outside perimeter, while Hinata's friends, the Hyuga and the Akatsuki, went inside what remained of the fortress. What they saw was utter carnage, bodies and body parts everywhere, blood covered much of the ground and stained what remained of the walls inside the fort. Ino put a hand over her mouth and buried her head in Chaoji's chest. She had never seen this kind of slaughter, nor did she ever want to again. The other ninja just gulped. They had never seen this level of carnage on even a battlefield. "Kami, what could have done something like this?" Kurenai stated. "Gather all of the headbands you can find. We need to see who attacked this place. They must have lost at least one of their own in the process," Hiashi said to the Hyuga that had accompanied him. They disappeared into the fortress. "Gather the headbands. Ino, Chaoji, Shikamaru and Kiba, go scout the northern part of the fortress. See if you can find anything. Lee, Tenten, Niji, Shino and Sakura, you 5 will search for survivors. The rest of you, with me," Kakashi states. Kakashi and the other former Jounin sensei, along with the Akatsuki and Hiashi, walked into the center of the fortress. They saw the hat Naruto had left behind. "It's just as I suspected," Pain stated. "Zetsu, would you mind telling us the story now?" "Well, it was Naruto. He asked me to follow Hinata outside of the village. When I reported to him that she'd been taken he got rather upset. And you didn't tell me. I'm her father," Hiashi said as he grabbed Zetsu by the throat. "Sorry, old man, but Naruto is far more terrifying than you or even Pain here could ever be," Zetsu choked out. "What do you mean? Naruto did all of this himself?" Kurenai asked. "This is why he is called the demon of the Akatsuki," Itachi stated as he picked up Naruto's hat. "His power and the rage he possesses is something even we do not take lightly. Why do you think he said he was doing us a favor by coming with us back to the Leaf Village for this one job? It certainly wasn't because he had to, that's for certain." "Itachi's right. Now recall everyone. There will be no survivors left in this place, Kisame stated. That girl has no doubt been rescued as well. They talked about what to do now. The Akatsuki weren't about to tell them where Naruto had taken Hinata, which upset Hiashi greatly. They talked about what they were going to do until the two groups Kakashi sent out came back. Neji and Shikamaru's groups came back to report in on what they had found. Neji had found Hinata's shredded clothes and Shikamaru found an Injado that seemed out of place. Without any warning, Kakashi told them it was time to return to the village. We're moving out back to the village. What do you mean, Kakashi? Hinata is still out there somewhere. Neji yelled. Yeah, my fiancé is still out there. Hinata is safe. Apparently one of the Akatsuki members was the one to do all this. How could one pathetic rogue ninja destroy this all by themselves? And why do you think I would accept him taking her somewhere? He's probably doing something to her right now. Kiba yelled. With Naruto and Hinata. Naruto had arrived a short while ago at the Akatsuki hideout. The place was like a home away from home. The hideout had normal beds, showers, food stores, and spare clothing. It was just one of the many hiding places the Akatsuki had. Naruto had laid Hinata down on one of the beds and covered her with a few blankets. He sat on the bed next to her, just watching the peaceful expression on her face. She had wrapped herself up in all the blankets to warm herself. He couldn't help but feel relaxed around her. Naruto stood up off the bed and swayed a little. He had used up too much chakra and he hadn't eaten in quite some time. Naruto left the room to get some food. Hinata shifted in her sleep, she had a smile on her face. She was having a great dream. Hinata's dream was that Naruto had come home and told her what she always wanted to hear. She often had that dream, but always woke up to reality. Hinata's eyes opened slowly. She was in a room she had never seen before. Where am I? Hinata wondered. Hinata lifted the covers to see she was wearing a black cloak. Her eyes widened as she realized what had happened. The past 24 hours was real. She sat up in bed and looked around before getting up from the bed, draping one of the blankets over her. She was just about to open the door to the room when the doorknob turned. She stepped back to see who it was who came through. Naruto walked through the door. Oh, Hinata, you're awake, Naruto stated. Tears suddenly started to form in Hinata's eyes as she stood there looking at Naruto. She suddenly lunged forward and wrapped her arms around him and started to cry. Naruto wasn't quite sure what to do, as he had never had to deal with anything like this before. Please don't cry, Hinata. You're safe now, Naruto said in a soft comforting tone. I was so scared. I've never felt that helpless before in my life. They were going to Hinata tried to say as the tears ran down her face. It's alright. You don't have to say it, Hinata, Naruto said as he wrapped his arms around her. The two stood there for a time. Hinata continued to cry into Naruto's chest while he just held her. Hinata's knees felt weak and she suddenly started to fall. However, Naruto held her up. You're still weak from those seals, Hinata. You need to rest more, Naruto stated as he picked her up bridal style and walked over to the bed. Naruto gently laid her down on the bed. Please don't leave me alone, Hinata pleaded. Tears were still streaming down her face. I won't leave you, Hinata, Naruto replied. He bent down over her on the bed, he wiped a tear from her face. Please stop crying, Hinata, I don't want to see tears stain that beautiful face of yours, Naruto stated before moving his hand to her face and kissing her. Naruto truly had no clue where the words he had just told Hinata had come from, but they felt like the right thing to say. Their kiss lasted about a minute. Hinata thought it was heaven. Kissing Naruto was one of Hinata's fantasies. She was also happy that he was her first kiss. After the kiss, Naruto laid down on the bed beside Hinata. Hinata had moved so that her head was now on Naruto's chest, a happy smile graced her face. Naruto had his arms wrapped around Hinata. For once in a very long time, Naruto was happy, so much so that he had a genuine smile on his face, something he hadn't shown in 5 years. But Kakashi's group had left the remains of the fortress. Of course, they didn't leave right away. He had to deal with the yelling and protests from Hinata's friends first. That took about 15 minutes before he just ordered them to head back to the village. None of them refused his order. They were currently about an hour into their trip back to the village. It would be early in the afternoon by the time they all arrived home. Kakashi sighed. None of the Akatsuki members were happy with Kiba when he called Naruto pathetic. Konan had been ready to chop off what little manhood the Inyazuka had. The group now traveled in silence for the most part. There were some whispered chats as they returned home. Kakashi, are you alright? Kakashi looked over to see his wife Kurenai traveling beside him. Yeah, I'm glad Hinata is alright, but the old Naruto would have never done something like that, he whispered in reply. I know, Kurenai replied sadly. Kakashi looked back to see the looks on the faces of Hinata's friends. Their expressions said a lot about how they were feeling at the moment. Kiba was irritated because he wasn't the one who rescued Hinata. Neji was downright pissed off that Hinata was being held somewhere by some rogue ninja. The others were just a bit depressed about the whole situation. With Naruto and Hinata still laid in the bed. Hinata had fallen asleep again, partially laying on Naruto's chest. Naruto had one arm wrapped around her waist and his other hand was caressing her cheek. He couldn't help notice how soft her skin was. Hinata sighed happily in her sleep and nuzzled into his chest some more. Naruto wondered if things could just stay like this forever. Do I really deserve someone like her? He wondered. Naruto had been asking himself that, along with similar questions ever since he brought her back here. He really couldn't understand how she could love him as she did. Although just being around Hinata made Naruto feel better. Hinata shifted in her sleep, causing her hair to drape over her face. Naruto used his free hand to move Hinata's hair out of her face. Even if this was only meant to last a short time, he would always remember it. Chapter 5 AN. Warning: there is a lemon in this chapter. Naruto had stayed up and watched Hinata just sleep. He really didn't know why, but watching her sleep peacefully like that relaxed him. Naruto ran his fingers through her hair before resting his head against a pillow. Time passed and Naruto couldn't sleep. He really didn't know why. Naruto knew the Akatsuki wouldn't tell Konoha where he had taken Hinata, nor would they come and bother them. Naruto sighed and got up. He had gently removed Hinata's arms from him, trying not to wake her. Once Naruto got up from the bed, though, he noticed Hinata looked rather displeased. Naruto kissed her lightly on the cheek. A pleasant smile appeared on Hinata's face and she cuddled with the nearest pillow. Naruto couldn't help but smile at her. She was beautiful and she could be cute when she wanted. Naruto was going to find Hinata some clothes. He would have already done it, but Hinata had been rather insistent on him staying. Naruto left for Konan's room. He hoped to find some clothes that would most likely fit her there. About 15 minutes had passed and Hinata began to toss and turn in her sleep. She awoke suddenly to find that she was hugging a pillow and not Naruto anymore. She sat up in the bed, Naruto's cloak still her only piece of clothing. She got up and out of the bed and walked around for a short time. Hinata found that there was a room for each Akatsuki member. She felt so naked in this single piece of clothing. At least Naruto was the only one around. Hinata blushed fiercely as she thought of Naruto seeing her naked. She then realized that he had already seen her naked. Hinata made her way to what looked like the kitchen. She saw that it had everything one would need: pots, pans, utensils in the drawers, and other such things one would need to cook just about anything. She looked inside one of the other sets of cabinets to find scrolls that had different foods inside them. "Oh, you're awake." Hinata spun around on the heels of her feet to see Naruto holding a pair of sweatpants and a tank top. Hinata looked at Naruto. He was wearing a dark gray muscle shirt. She blushed upon seeing how much muscle he had. Naruto put the clothes on the counter and walked over to Hinata and checked to see if she was okay. "Something wrong, Hinata?" he asked. Hinata wrapped her arms around him, burying her face into his chiseled chest and sighing happily. "No, nothing's wrong anymore," she replied. Naruto just smiled at her. Neither said or did anything else other than stand there holding one another. He couldn't be happier right now. Back at the Leaf Village, everyone had just recently arrived back at the village. The battle group had arrived back at the village no more than an hour ago now. Kakashi had sent them all home to get rest and then to perform their normal duties. He had already given his report to the Hokage and was spending his downtime with his daughter, Rin. They were outside in the backyard. "Would you stop pulling my hair and telling me to mush?" Kakashi asked his daughter comically while trying not to cry. "But daddy needs to mush," Rin said happily. Kurenai soon came into the backyard with a late lunch for them. "Rin, dear, please stop pulling your father's hair. I rather like his hair as it is and I don't need him going bald," Kurenai said sweetly to her daughter while placing the food on the table. Rin released her vice-like grip on her father's hair. Kakashi sighed in relief over the newfound freedom of his hair. Kakashi walked over to the table and took Rin off his shoulders, placing her in one of the seats. Kakashi sat in a seat next to his wife. "Something wrong?" Kurenai asked her husband. "I still can't get over what Naruto did to the people of that fortress. I've never seen that level of death before, even during the wars." Kakashi didn't go into specifics because his daughter was eating at the table. "I know. All we can hope for is that he brings Hinata back safely." Kakashi just sighed and ate his food. After they finished eating their food, Kakashi and Kurenai were sitting, just watching their daughter play with some fake kunai. "I was hoping Sora would have taken the news better than she did," Kakashi muttered. "She'll be fine once Hinata is back in the village," Kurenai replied. "I suppose you're right." Kakashi was a bit worried because Sora had looked like the world had ended when she was informed of what happened to Hinata. One of the reasons Sora was informed was because Hinata was her legal guardian. Sora didn't take it well because she was afraid she was going to be left alone again. Even though Sora was told that Hinata would be back soon, it didn't seem to register with her. "The others didn't like the fact we left her behind with Naruto. Then again, they don't know that it's him yet," Kakashi stated as he sipped his tea. Denton wasn't too happy about what happened. She was Hinata's friend and confidant since Naruto left the village. Tenten sighed as she put her Anbu attire back on. She had decided not to wear it earlier when they left to go after Hinata. Tenten hoped that Hinata was alright and that the Akatsuki member didn't violate her in any way. Because if he or she did, Tenten was going to jam a kunai in said person. Tenten sighed as she put on the mask. Niji was already dressed and waiting for her outside. Tenten walked outside and left with Niji. Niji wasn't taking this whole incident very well and he really hadn't talked since they left the fortress. Tsunade was sitting in her office, going over paperwork. She had just gotten through with a council meeting. Tsunade's advisors had grilled her for sending so many ninja away just to save one person. She didn't really care what they said. It all went in one ear and out the other. Tsunade also had to deal with the complaints of Hinata's friends. She just dismissed them for the time being. They would most likely find out who the mysterious member of the Akatsuki was soon enough anyhow. I just hope Naruto hasn't changed too much for her, Tsunade thought. Why such a depressed look, Haim? Why do you think, Jiraiya? Jiraiya had appeared behind Tsunade and wrapped his arms around her. Tsunade put her hand gently on his arm. I'm sure they're fine and Naruto hasn't broken her heart, Jiraiya said reassuringly. Now why don't we go get a late lunch, since we haven't done something like that in about a year. I'd like to, but I have all this paperwork still, Tsunade said as she looked at the stacks of papers on her desk. Your paperwork will still be here in an hour. Jiraiya replied as he moved Tsunade away from her desk. Tsunade sighed. Alright. I suppose I can take an hour off. The two of them left to get a late lunch. Shikamaru, Chaoji and Ino were currently eating at the barbecue restaurant. Their food had just arrived and Shikamaru wasn't eating anything. Chaoji and Ino looked at one another before asking Shikamaru what was wrong. What's up, Shikamaru? Chaoji asked his best friend. Shikamaru snapped out of his daze. I was just thinking, that's all, he replied. About what, specifically? Ino asked. About the fact that Hinata's father, Hiashi, was relieved to hear that certain Akatsuki member had rescued Hinata. What's wrong with that? Ino asked. I'm wondering why Hiashi didn't press the matter when he heard one of the Akatsuki members had already rescued Hinata. Shikamaru thought about what he had just said. Unless he already knows who the person is and trusts him. Taoji and Ino thought about that for a moment. They couldn't think of anyone Hiashi would trust with his eldest daughter like that. They all knew Hiashi and he wasn't someone who gave his trust easily. None of them could think of anyone Hiashi would trust that much. They highly doubt he trusted Kiba enough for something like that. Do you think our parents know who he is? Chaoji asked. More than likely, that's the case, Shikamaru replied. The three of them dropped the conversation and ate their food. Leaving shortly after they were done to get to their duties for the day. With Hinata and Naruto. Naruto had just taken a shower and had just gotten some clean pants on. Hinata had insisted that he be the first to take a shower. Naruto thought it was a little odd, but dismissed it. Naruto was sitting on the bed, thinking about Hinata. She was acting a little odd when he got out of the shower. Naruto heard the shower turn off. He leaned back and shut his eyes. Naruto and Hinata hadn't really talked about anything. Hinata seemed too insecure right now. All she really wanted to do was be close to him. Naruto started to doze off when he felt something on top of him. His eyes shot open to see Hinata on top of him, but all she had on was a towel. Before Naruto could do or say anything, she kissed him. Naruto wrapped his arms around her as the kiss continued. Hinata? Naruto asked when they finally ended the kiss. This is what I want, Naruto-kun, Hinata said. Naruto couldn't help but stare at Hinata. She was beautiful. You're sure? Well, Kit, it seems you have found yourself a mate. However, you know you will outlive her. Naruto was standing in a grass field. A massive fox lay in front of him. He gave the fox a nasty look before responding. I didn't need to be reminded and it's not my fault I will outlive her. If it wasn't for me, you would have died 5 years ago. Sometimes I wish I had died 5 years ago. I was cursed the day I was born to be your jailer and now I'm cursed to be stuck with you for all time. Don't forget, Kit, you asked me to keep you alive. You told me you had unfinished business. I told you what the consequences might be if I managed to keep you alive. If I remember right, if I died, I brought you with me because of how this seal on me was constructed. Yes. This was indeed the case, but you were the one who made the choice. Plus we made a deal that day that you would kill Madara for me. Yeah, I remember, and I plan on doing just that. I just wish that you hadn't fallen in love with this girl. Yeah, Naruto stood there in front of the fox just thinking. I know that no children I have will ever have an unlimited lifespan like myself. Yes. This is true as I explained already. At the very most, they will have extended lifespans, maybe 60 years longer than normal people. They will also have greater regenerative abilities than most. You will have to tell her eventually. I know, what else do you want? Isn't there something you can do, Takeshi? Takeshi didn't reply. He remained silent. He knew Naruto was asking about being able to keep Hinata with him through the ages. Takeshi just phased from sight, leaving Naruto by himself. Naruto sighed, he stood there for a time by himself before leaving this part of his mind. Naruto opened his eyes. He was lying on his back. Hinata was pressed up against him, holding him tightly. She had a pleasant smile on her face. Naruto loosened her hold on him so he could shift himself. He shifted so he was now facing Hinata, who wrapped her arms around him once more in her sleep and buried her face into his chest. Naruto wrapped his arms around her and hugged her. Naruto looked down at Hinata and kissed her. This was one of the very reason he didn't want to get involved with anyone. Because he might one day have to leave them behind while he lived on. A few hours passed as Naruto laid there holding Hinata in his arms as she slept. Naruto noticed Hinata beginning to stir and she soon opened her eyes. Naruto smiled. "Ah, you're awake, my Haim." Hinata said nothing, she just sighed happily and snuggled more into his chest. "We should really take another shower, Haim," Naruto whispered as he stroked her long hair. "Only if you carry me," Hinata whispered. "That, I can do," he replied. Naruto picked Hinata up with the sheets on her body and carried her into the bathroom. Hinata wrapped her arms around his neck and blushed the whole way. They came out of the shower about 2 hours later. Hinata was wearing the clothes Naruto had found for her earlier. The two of them sat on the couch, Hinata snuggled up against Naruto in her tank top and sweatpants. Her clothes were a dark blue in color, seeing as Conan only wore dark-colored clothing. "Hinata, we should really be heading back soon. Can we just stay here for the night and head back tomorrow?" "Of course, if that's what you want," Naruto replied. Naruto slid to one side of the couch, bringing Hinata down with him. Hinata now lay on top of Naruto, who had a grin on his face. Naruto wrapped his arms around her waist and kissed her deeply. During the kiss Naruto's hands moved down to Hinata's butt and gripped both cheeks. Hinata's eyes shot open and she broke the kiss. "Naruto-kun, we already had an encore of our bedroom performance in the shower." Naruto looked at her innocently. Can't blame a guy for trying. A foxy grin now graced his face. Suddenly, his stomach trembled. Hinata giggled. "Is my Naruto-kun hungry?" Hinata asked. Before he could answer, Hinata kissed him, got up and headed into the kitchen. "Yeah, but it's not food I want," he mumbled as he sat up on the couch and watched Hinata as she walked into the kitchen. Naruto sighed as he got up and walked up to the kitchen door. Naruto looked into the kitchen at Hinata, then realized she looked a little sad. He quietly entered the room, walked up behind her and wrapped his arms around her. "Is there something wrong, Haim?" Hinata sighed softly. Her hands came up and held on to Naruto's arms. "No, nothing's wrong. Everything is perfect. It's just, you don't want to marry Kiba?" Naruto asked, causing Hinata's body to tense up. Naruto tightened his hold on her. "Don't worry. You won't have to marry him if you don't want to," Naruto whispered in her ear. Hinata relaxed just from hearing those words from Naruto. Back at the village, the Akatsuki members were sitting around in the living room of the Namikaze mansion. They had just gotten through with a council meeting about them not divulging the location of Hinata Hyuga. Conan had dragged Yahiko back up to the bedroom while the others sat and talked. "So, do you guys think our younger member will take advantage of that hot piece of ass?" Hayden stated. "You know he isn't like that," Itachi replied as he drank his tea. "I would also warn you never to speak like that again, Hayden, or our younger member won't be the only one who likes to decapitate you. That's not fair. Why can't you guys decapitate someone else?" Hayden whined. "Because you don't die from being decapitated, that's why," Kakuza said as he looked up from what he was doing. "Although, I do find it annoying, having to reattach your head every time. I think I'm going to go take a walk," Itachi said as he got up from his chair. Itachi quickly left the estate. He didn't have any specific destination, he just felt like taking a walk for once. After a short while, Itachi found himself nearing the old Uchiha district. Itachi looked at the front gate to the Uchiha district before turning around and walking the other way. That was the first time since the massacre that he had laid eyes on that place. Itachi continued to walk until he came to the Ichiraku's raiment stand. He used to come here often before the Uchiha massacre. He sat down on one of the stools and saw two familiar faces. "It's been some time, hasn't it, Aim-chan, Tucci-san?" Aim blushed, and Tucci didn't pay too much attention to Itachi's greeting. "The only reason I don't throw you out of my stand is because you took care of Naruto for the past 5 years," Tucci said before bringing some of the dirty bowls into the back. "Your father is still the same as ever," Itachi stated. "He never did like you even before that event," Aim replied. "So I hear he's with Hinata right now. Is that true?" Aim asked, trying to change the subject. "Yeah. He rescued her, and they're off in one of our hideouts. Hinata's in love with him, you know." "I've heard that, yes." Their conversation was mostly about Naruto and Hinata. That was until Itachi asked Aim a question. "Would you like to go out with me sometime?" Itachi asked out of nowhere. Aim blushed crimson. Sure." She squeaked out. "Very well. I'll pick you up here tomorrow for breakfast," Itachi stated and got up. He left the raiment stand in the direction of the Namikaze estate. Itachi had no idea why he asked AM out on a date, but he had done so. Itachi was walking until he felt someone watching him. "Come out. I don't like being spied on." Kiba appeared in front of Itachi. "Tell me. Where is she?" he yelled. "Hinata is safe, she is currently in a far safer place than this village. Also, I don't plan on telling a child like yourself who is currently being driven by his hormones. Get over yourself, Kiba Inyazuka. That woman will never love you. Now, leave before you do something you will regret." Itachi suddenly disappeared into a flock of crows, not allowing the Inyazuka a chance to do or say anything. Kiba stood there for a time, seething in rage, before storming off. Jiraiya and Tsunade came stumbling out of a bar. Their hour lunch turned into a drinking contest that had just ended. That was only because the bar wouldn't sell them any more sake. "I won, Jiraiya," Tsunade exclaimed as she stumbled. "We didn't even get to finish. It's a draw," Jiraiya replied as he put his arm around her to keep them both standing. "We ran out of sake before we could finish after all. I still won, seeing as I drank 11 out of the 20 bottles." Fine, you won. You happy now?" "Yes I am," she stated proudly. Only in the Leaf Village would you find a plastered cage walking down the streets in daylight during wartime. Everyone looked at them after they talked about drinking 20 bottles of sake between the two of them. They had no idea how they were talking coherently or even standing for that matter. The two stumbled off in the direction of Tsunade's office. With Naruto and Hinata. Naruto was sitting at the table in the kitchen, watching Hinata cook. She had a pleasant smile on her face as she cut up different vegetables and meats for the meal. There was a quiet and pleasant atmosphere in the room. Naruto closed his eyes and leaned back in the chair. He opened his eyes when Hinata plopped herself down in his lap. "Well, hi there. Done already?" Naruto asked as he kissed Hinata on the cheek. "Everything's cooking now, so I don't have to pay too much attention to it," she replied as she wrapped her arms around Naruto's neck. "Is that so?" Naruto asked as he put his arms around Hinata and pulled her close. Hinata was blushing fiercely at the closeness with her love. Naruto just stared at her lips for a moment before capturing them in a kiss. Naruto liked kissing Hinata, her lips were so soft. Once the kiss ended, Hinata curled up in Naruto's lap. "What are we going to do about Kiba?" Hinata asked. "Nothing. Just let him complain his head off. He can't do anything even if he is the head of his clan now. If I have to, I'll kick his ass. Just don't kill him, alright?" "Why not? He's been a royal creep, or so I hear. Who will miss him at this point?" "Naruto, Kiba may be acting like this now, but he was my friend once, so please don't kill him if something happens." Naruto sighed. "Fine, if that's what you want. But if he touches you, I can't promise too much." Hinata gave him a peck on the cheek before getting off his lap to check on the food. Naruto was rather unhappy that Hinata had gotten up. Hinata began to check on the food she had put on to cook. Naruto watched Hinata cook for the next half hour. She stood there, stirring the pot and changing the temperature as she cooked. Naruto could smell what Hinata was cooking, and he liked it. Soon enough, it seemed Hinata was finished. Hinata had cooked a simple stew for their dinner. She filled 2 bowls and walked over to the table, setting one down in front of Naruto before she took her seat. Naruto took the large spoon next to the bowl and began to eat the stew Hinata had cooked. He really enjoyed it, even thought he was never big on vegetables. "This is great," Naruto exclaimed. "Really? You like it?" "Yeah. You're a really good cook, Hinata Hime," Naruto said happily before digging back in and finishing his food. Hinata blushed and ate her food as well. Once Hinata finished her food, they decided to just sit together on the couch. Hinata laid up against Naruto as they sat on the couch, and Naruto smiled as he ran his fingers through her long indigo hair. Hinata sighed happily and snuggled up against Naruto. This was what she always wanted. To be like this with Naruto. Chapter 6. Naruto and Hinata had fallen asleep on the couch. Hinata had a pleasant smile on her face. She was curled up against Naruto, his arms wrapped around her, holding her closely. Hinata's eyes opened slowly. She sighed happily and snuggled more into Naruto. She was still ecstatic to hear Naruto say the words "I love you" to her. Naruto had said that to Hinata shortly before she had fallen asleep. "Morning, beautiful," Naruto whispered. "Morning," she replied happily. "We need to head back today, Hina-hime. I really don't want to go back myself, but I did say I would defend the Leaf Village and its allies." Hinata let out a depressed sigh. "I know, Naruto-kun. I just don't want to go back and deal with my clan or Kiba right now. I doubt it will be as bad as you think." Hinata sat up on the couch. She was never as optimistic as Naruto was about these things in the past or even now. She got up but was suddenly pulled back down into Naruto's lap. Before Hinata could say or do anything, Naruto planted his lips on hers. Hinata wrapped her arms around Naruto as the kiss continued. When the kiss ended, Hinata buried her face in his chest. "I'm scared, Naruto, I don't want to lose you again." Naruto stroked Hinata's long hair, trying to comfort her. "Don't worry, Hina-hime. I'll always be here for you," Naruto said comfortingly. Hinata's body relaxed in Naruto's embrace. They stayed like that for a time before it was time they got going. Naruto got up off the couch and started to pack a few things he wanted to take with him. Naruto-kun. I can't go out looking like this. Naruto looked at her. She was in a tank top and sweatpants. No bra, combat wraps or panties were underneath her current clothes. Why? I think you look great. A pillow hit him in the face about half a second later after saying those words. Hinata had a light pink blush on her face. She may have been more comfortable around Naruto like this now, but nobody else. I have no underwear, Naruto. I can't out like this, I don't look that great in it either, Hinata said as she looked at the clothes she wore. Naruto appeared behind Hinata and wrapped his arms around her. My Haim looks good in anything, even nothing for that matter. Especially in nothing, Naruto said perversely. Naruto began to place light kisses on her neck. The kisses sent a pleasant sensation down her spine. Hinata sighed happily, but decided Naruto was right, they had to be getting back to the village. Naruto, as much as I like this, can we please get to the issue at hand? Fine, Naruto said, disappointed. Naruto stopped teasing Hinata and went over to his room and pulled out a new cloak for her. Hinata quickly put the Akatsuki cloak on. Before she could do anything, Naruto scooped her up into his arms. And Naruto. I can walk on my own. Hinata stated in protest and surprise. Naruto shook his head. Nope, I'm going to carry you, and that's that, Naruto stated with a big smile on his face. Well, alright, just don't drop me, she teased. Hinata snuggled into his arms, her head lay on his chest. It would be at least 4 hours before they were home. Naruto put on his hat on and left the hideout with Hinata in his arms. He felt a sense of accomplishment, pride, and above all else, he was happy. Hinata had fallen asleep about half an hour into traveling. Naruto just smiled. Hinata was so cute right now, curled up in his arms. Hinata looked so peaceful sleeping like that in his arms. Naruto tried to keep Hinata as still as possible so she could sleep the entire way back. Naruto avoided several Kumo patrols and once back inside the Land of Fire, avoided all Leaf patrols as well. He wasn't in the mood to stop and chat with them, but it was mostly because that would wake Hinata up. The village was coming into view. Naruto wondered if he should wake Hinata up. Time to get up. We're back at the village. Hinata's eyes opened slowly and looked at the front gates off in the distance. That's nice, she mumbled, shutting her eyes and going back to sleep. Naruto just chuckled and continued to walk towards the front gate. He walked right past the gate guard. They neither said nor did anything, but they sure as hell stared. Of course, seeing as Naruto had the hat on, they didn't know who it was. Naruto figured he didn't have to say anything. They would report to Tsunade right after seeing him. He disappeared from sight with Hinata. Naruto was heading to his estate. Naruto appeared at the front gate of the estate, he jumped over the gate and walked towards the front door. Naruto came up to the door of the estate, opened it and walked inside. The other Akatsuki members just watched Naruto as he carried Hinata up to his room, shutting the door behind him. Well, he certainly looked happy, Konan stated as she drank her tea. I told you he took advantage of that hot Hyuga ass, Haiden said. A slip of paper floated through the air and attached itself onto Haiden's face. Konan sipped her tea before saying anything. As long as I'm here, Haiden, do not speak in such a way. Unless you would rather be blown to pieces. She stated as an explosive seal appeared on the slip of paper. I would shut up, Haiden. I'm sure even you can't survive having your head being blown to bits, Kakuzu said, walking into the room. So, Haiden, what will it be? Konan asked. Haiden mumbled something, and the piece of paper slipped off of his face. I thought you would see it my way, she said in a sweet tone. Sasori came into the room soon after the little event between Haiden and Konan. We have guests on the property. It seems they have already found out about that girl being back in the village, Sasori stated before leaving the room. Naruto had set Hinata down in his room. Hinata was fully awake and curiously looking around the room. She paid special attention to the picture of Naruto's parents. Hinata had no idea Naruto was the son of the Yondaime Hokage. She had a feeling he really didn't want to talk about, so she just decided to wait till he wanted to talk about. Naruto just watched Hinata look around the room. He took his hat and cloak off and threw them on a chair. Hinata took off her cloak as well and put it on the chair Naruto had thrown his. Why don't we go get bathed, Naruto-kun? Hinata whispered. She was embarrassed saying such a thing. Even though Hinata and Naruto had bathed together already back at the hideout, Hinata was still embarrassed asking Naruto. Naruto grinned and wrapped his arms around Hinata. I never knew you were like that, Haim, he said teasingly. Hinata blushed crimson at Naruto basically calling her a pervert. Naruto gave Hinata a short but passionate kiss. Sorry, Haim, if I went in with you, I doubt I could control myself. You go first and get washed up. The towels are over there in that dresser and the master bath is over there, Naruto stated as he pointed to the dresser and the master bath. Hinata was still blushing furiously. She gave him a quick peck on the cheek, grabbed a towel, and headed off into the master bathroom. Naruto watched her head into the bathroom. He would much rather prefer going with her, but he knew people would be showing up soon. Naruto really didn't care if he looked bad for sleeping with or bathing with an engaged woman. He would rather just get everything over with as little bloodshed as possible. 5 minutes later, Hinata came out of the bathroom, a towel wrapped tightly around her, showing off her figure. She brought her old clothes out with her. Naruto appeared in front of her. "You know what, Hinata?" Naruto whispered into her ear. "What's that, Naruto-kun?" She replied, a light blush on her cheeks. Naruto leaned down till his mouth was next to her ear. "You should run around in a towel more often," he whispered. "Pervert," she whispered back. "Only for you, Haim," Naruto stated before kissing her. Hinata's arms wrapped around his waist, letting old clothes and her towel fall to the floor. Naruto ended the kiss, then looked at her naked body. "I take that back, you should run around without a towel more often. Is that an invitation to something?" she asked seductively. "You know it is," he said before kissing her again. Just as Naruto's hands were about to head south, he heard a rather large number of footsteps coming down the hall. He quickly grabbed a blanket off the bed and wrapped it around Hinata. Then quickly stood in front of her as the door opened. "Where is Hin?" Neji stopped yelling as he realized who was standing in front of him. "Hi," Naruto said to his old friends. Although he didn't see Sakura, thankfully. The group just stared at him for a while before anyone said anything. "Where is my fiancé?" Kiba screamed. As loud and unruly as always, Kiba. "Well, just so you know, she is not now, nor has she ever been yours, Kiba." Everyone noticed the clothing on the floor and the blanket that seemed to be standing behind Naruto. "Who's that behind you, Naruto?" Shikamaru asked in a bored tone. Hinata poked her head out from behind Naruto. "Hi everyone," she said just above a whisper. Hinata felt rather uncomfortable being practically naked in front of everyone. "You slept with my cousin. You slept with my fiancé." Neji and Kiba both yelled at the same time. Though Naruto, Shikamaru thought. "Well, technically, we made love yesterday. Twice, in fact. The first time on the bed and the second time in the shower. Question is, do you consider sex to be 15 minutes long?" "Seeing as we've been back only that long," Naruto stated nonchalantly. That comment from Naruto made everyone but himself feel rather uncomfortable. Everyone noticed Hinata's face was very red. "You slept with my fiancé," Kiba repeated. "Oh, shut the hell up, dog boy. Hinata made her choice a long time ago. It seems I just wasn't smart enough to realize it back then. Now get out of my house if all you're going to do is yell. Marriage contract or not, Kiba, Hinata will be staying with me from now on and you will never touch her." Kiba didn't say anything. He just stormed out of the room. There was an uncomfortable silence until Shikamaru spoke up. "So it was you the entire time, Naruto?" Shikamaru asked. "Yep." Hinata noticed Neji was still extremely upset. "Nyasan, don't be angry with Naruto-kun. It's what I wanted." Tenten elbowed Neji in the side, grabbing his attention. "Neji, knock it off. You know Hinata's been waiting for Naruto since he left." "I know, but sorry to interrupt, but it seems the council requires our presence, Naruto." Everyone turned around and found Itachi standing in the doorway. "Already?" "Yes, they also require Hinata's presence as well." "I see, well if you guys wouldn't mind leaving the room so Hinata can get decent. And after I'm done with the council, we can talk." "Oh, and Neji. Could you get Hinata a change of clothes?" "Yes, of course. I'll return with them shortly," he replied. No one decided to argue, as most of them didn't even know what to say in the first place. They all quickly left, shutting the door behind them. Naruto turned around to face Hinata. "See, that wasn't so bad, was it?" Naruto picked Hinata up with a blanket wrapped around her and brought her to the bed. He sat down on the bed holding Hinata in the blanket. Hinata's arms came out of the blanket and wrapped themselves around Naruto's neck. Naruto just smiled at Hinata and kissed her. Naruto really did enjoy kissing her. Their little make-out session continued until Neji came back. Neji walked in a few minutes later to see his little cousin making out with Naruto on the bed. He just stood there for a while thinking they would actually notice him. Of course, that was not the case at all. To them, he didn't even exist at the moment. Neji walked over to the bed and put the clothes on it. They had still yet to notice him in the room. "Are you two going to stop already?" Neji asked. They both broke apart and looked at Neji. They hadn't even noticed him come in. Neji wasn't able to see, but Hinata's blanket was open. "Damn, Neji's back already. But that doesn't mean I have to stop just yet," Naruto thought. Naruto's head dropped into the open part of the blanket which happened to lead to Hinata's breasts. He gave the right breast a quick lick. "Naruto. Not in front of my cousin," Hinata said in protest. Hinata didn't dislike what Naruto had done. It was quite the opposite. She enjoyed it. Although, now was not the time to do such things, especially in front of Neji. "Oh, it's not like he could see or anything." "Not the point, Naruto-kun," Hinata said, trying to not let her embarrassment get the best of her. "Fine. Have it your way, but we will pick up where I left off later, Naruto said before giving her one last kiss. Hinata was blushing crimson from the implication of what might happen later. Before Hinata could respond, Neji finally spoke up. As much as I'd rather have Naruto than Kiba with my little cousin, try to do that when I'm not here, Neji said in a stern tone. Neji was irritated they acted like he wasn't even there. He turned and walked out of the room. Wasn't he just pissed off about the whole thing earlier? Naruto asked. I think Tenten lectured him on the alternative or something like that, Hinata replied. You mean, she said, get along or you're sleeping on the couch for a while. Probably, she replied. Hinata got off the bed with a blanket still wrapped around her. She grabbed her clothes and went inside the bathroom. Naruto was a little disappointed she didn't dress next to the bed. Hinata came out of the bathroom about a minute later and Naruto quickly put on his cloak and hat. Naruto-kun, why are you putting the hat back on? Oh, sorry, Hinata. It's force of habit, seeing as I've worn it constantly for the past 5 years. Naruto sighed and threw the hat back on the bed. The two of them walked out of the bedroom straight for the council room. They walked through the village, Hinata latched onto Naruto's arm. Her head lay against his shoulder. There was a pleasant expression on her face as they walked through the village. The two of them got many looks as they made their way through the village. They soon made it to the council chamber doors. Two Anbu stood guard. They walked past the two guards and into the council chambers. Itachi stood there in the center of the room while the civilian council seemed to be arguing about something. Naruto and Hinata walked into the room. Everyone grew quiet once they entered the room. A sense of unease and fear was evident. Alright, spill it, what do you all want? You were interrupting my Hinata time, Naruto stated in an irritated tone. Hinata blushed at Naruto's words. She stood as close to Naruto as she could when she saw her father looking at her. Well, I do have a question for you, Naruto. Were you the only one at that fortress when it was destroyed? Shikaku Nara asked. Considering I destroyed it, yes I was, Naruto replied. Impossible. No one man could destroy a fortress so quickly. Shouted a fat, stupid-looking civilian councilman. Shut your mouth, you worthless piece of garbage. What do you really know of what anyone is capable of, you fat slime? Naruto yelled, shutting the man up. Naruto turned toward Shinobi Council. No offense, Chaozu-san. None taken, Chaozu replied. The fact is, I did destroy the fortress on my own in about 15 minutes. Any Kumo ninja that stayed to fight died. It's as simple as that. Now what did you call me, Hinata and Itachi here for? Before anything could be said, Kiba barged into the council room. Everyone turned to see who it was except for Naruto, he already knew who it was. No one said anything as Kiba rushed over to Hinata. Kiba's arm extended out to grab her by the arm. He figured Naruto wouldn't do anything in the council room. Kiba had no idea how wrong he was in assuming that. Just as Kiba was about to grab Hinata's arm, a hand gripped the back of Kiba's neck. In a split second, Naruto threw Kiba back the way he came. Although he didn't fly through the double doors that he used to enter the room. Kiba went through the wall beside the doors. Don't ever touch her. The killer intent Naruto released caused the civilian council to pass out. Others in the room were having trouble breathing. Naruto-kun, please stop, Hinata whispered as she grabbed onto his arm. Naruto's killer intent vanished suddenly, allowing people in the room to catch their breath. For a moment no one said or did anything. How dare you attack the newly appointed leader of the Inuzuka clan? Kaharu yelled. Shut your trap. I told Dog Breath never to touch Hinata. I don't make idle threats. Kiba's lucky I didn't just snap his neck just then. He's engaged to Hinata Hyuga. How can you make such a claim? Hamura yelled. The fact is, she chose to be with me and I don't care what a stupid piece of paper says unless both parties actually have a say in the matter. Everyone suddenly looked to Hiashi Hyuga for some type of answer. He said nothing as everyone just looked at him waiting for him to say something. Everyone was surprised when Hiashi started to grin, something he never did. Do you love my daughter Naruto Namikaze? Yes I do. Did you already sleep with my daughter? Yes, but it was her choice. Well I can see you're not lying. Hinata is just like her mother in more ways than one, it seems. Hiashi turned to Kiba's mother Tsume. I hope you aren't displeased with how things turned out, Tsume-sama. No, I always knew something was going to happen to prevent my son from marrying your daughter. I've been telling him for years she wasn't the one for him, but the idiot just wouldn't listen. Tsume looked at her son who was unconscious. I'll inform Kiba of this new development later. Danzu stood up from his chair. Well, now that this incident has been settled, I would like to bring a certain document to light. I wish to enact the CRA on the Namikaze and Uchiha clans. You can't be serious, Danzu, Tsunade replied. Oh but I am. What's the CRA? Naruto asked. Tsunade sighed. It's basically enacted when a clan is on the verge of being wiped out. The last remaining male, if there is one, would have to marry multiple wives and have children with each to rebuild the clan. Naruto didn't bother to think about it. Sorry, Danzu, but I have no desire to fulfill your harem fetish. Neither do I, Itachi replied, finally speaking. Naruto and I haven't been civilians or ninja of this village for at least half a decade. This doesn't apply to us any longer and you cannot make us regardless as you do not have the power to force us to do it. Anzu grumbled a bit and sat down. He had hoped they would have just gone with his plans, but instead they openly opposed. Well, if that's all you need, Hinata and I will be going now. I would suggest getting those civilians checked out. Some of them are pretty large and might have had a heart attack or something like that. Naruto and Hinata began to leave the council chambers. Naruto stopped, he forgot to mention something. Oh yeah, one last thing. If I ever find out who sold out Hinata's team, I will kill them, regardless of who they are, Naruto said in a low threatening tone. After Naruto said what he had to, they walked out of the room. Itachi just looked at the council to see if he could spot who had sold Hinata out. He smiled at them all with a look telling them that somebody was going to die just to freak them out and with a flourish of his cloak, followed Naruto and Hinata out of the room. Well, that's enough council for one day. I need a drink. Oh, and somebody get these poor bastards some medical attention, Tsunade stated as she got up and walked out. Outside of the council room Hinata was latched onto Naruto's arm, a happy smile graced her face. Itachi was now right behind them. Itachi, do what you have to, alright. I don't care about the methods, but find out who did it. Very well. I'll see what I can do, but for right now I have to meet someone for lunch, he replied. Oh, who is it? I asked AM out yesterday to breakfast, we went and decided to meet at lunch today as well. Well, just treat her right. That's all I ask, Itachi. Of course. Now, if you will excuse me, I have to meet her in 20 minutes. Itachi disappeared, leaving Naruto and Hinata alone. So I want to go back home and pick up where we left off? Naruto asked. Hinata blushed. Maybe later, Naruto-kun. I really want to check up on Sora first. Right, then let's head over to your apartment. Sora sat in her and Hinata's apartment. She hadn't left since she heard the news about Hinata's rescue. Sora was just going to sit and wait till Hinata came home. She had no idea when Hinata would be home, but she was determined to wait for her. Sora didn't hear, but two people walked inside the apartment. Sora, I'm home, Hinata called out. Sora shot up off her bed and ran through her bedroom door. All Hinata saw was Sora coming flying out of her room and crashing into her. They both hit the ground, Sora was hugging Hinata tightly. I was so worried. Sora yelled as she started to cry. Hinata smiled and patted Sora on the head. It's alright, Sora. I'm back, Hinata said in a comforting tone. So this is where you live, Haim. It's not as fancy as the Hyuga estate, but I like it. Sora saw Naruto in the doorway to the apartment. She was grateful to him for rescuing Hinata. So did you have sex with him yet? Yes, we did, and it was fantastic. Naruto exclaimed proudly. Naruto? Hinata shouted, her face a very dark red. Naruto grinned mischievously at Hinata, then helped her and Sora up off the floor. Now why don't the three of us go have some lunch? Naruto asked. Sounds great, Naruto-kun, Hinata replied. I'm good, I don't want to get in the way or anything, Sora stated. Naruto grabbed her by the collar of her shirt, picking her up and off the ground as Sora tried to walk away. Hey. Let me go. Sora yelled, trying to kick and punch Naruto. Nope. You're coming with us to lunch, Naruto stated, a playful grin on his face. Sora crossed her arms and looked away, a scowl on her face. Fine, I'll go. Just put me down. Naruto set her down on the floor and the three of them left the apartment. The three of them walked down the street as they talked about where to eat. Hinata was latched onto Naruto's right arm while Sora was walking ahead of the two lovebirds. In a way, the three of them looked like a family. So, where do you two want to go? Naruto asked. I feel like barbecue, Naruto-kun, Hinata replied. Whatever Hinata decides is fine with me, Sora stated. The three of them came up to the barbecue restaurant. They quickly got a table and sat down to see what they wanted to order. Hinata sat closely to Naruto on one side of the table and Sora sat on her own on the other side. Sora sat and watched the two of them. She was happy for Hinata that she finally found someone, but she also felt left out. Sora was a bit jealous that Naruto was taking Hinata away from her. Sora just watched Hinata, who had a pleasant look on her face. Sora had never seen Hinata this happy before. She began to sip her drink. Sora was afraid she would be left alone again. Both Naruto and Hinata noticed Sora's behavior. They looked at each other for a moment before speaking. Sora, what's wrong? Hinata asked. What will happen to me now that you will most likely be moving in with Naruto? The meat had just arrived. Naruto began to put the meat on before speaking. You'll be coming with her, of course. There's more than enough room at the estate for you. Naruto looked up to see the look on Sora's face. What? Did you think I would have Hinata choose me over you or something? Well actually, yes. Before Naruto could say anything, a group of people walked into the restaurant. It was Shikamaru, Chaoji, Ino, Niji, Tenten, and Shino. Hey guys. Naruto said. Niji and Shino pulled a table close to the booth Naruto, Hinata, and Sora were sitting at. Everyone sat down and began to chat about old times and such. Sora, for the most part, just sat there and listened to their old stories while she ate. More food was ordered, and they ate and talked until it was late at night. Hinata had fallen asleep against Naruto during all the talking. Naruto put a large sum of money on the table to pay for all the things eaten and drank during their time at the restaurant. "Alright guys, I'll see you around, I need to get Hinata to bed it seems," Naruto said, sliding out of the booth and picking Hinata up. Everyone said their farewells and headed off. Naruto was carrying Hinata through town, and Sora was walking beside him. "Is there something you want to ask, Sora?" Naruto asked. "Do you love Hinata?" Naruto looked down at Hinata in his arms. "Yeah, I do." They walked in silence until they came up to the Namikaze estate. Sora was now walking behind Naruto. She wasn't sure what to expect. Naruto opened the front door to the estate and saw everyone either reading, playing cards, or eating. "You brought another one home? I think this one is a little too young for you, Naruto," Conan said, a playful smirk on her face. "Honey, Conan," Naruto replied. "I try. Would you mind showing Sora to one of the empty rooms?" Conan studied Sora for a second before showing her to a room. Naruto watched as Conan and Sora walked off. He noticed just as the two rounded the hall they started a conversation. Naruto walked up the stairs to the master bedroom. He arrived in the room and set Hinata down on the bed. Naruto grabbed a change of clothes and left to take a shower. He came out of the shower 10 minutes later. Naruto saw Hinata was curled up with one of the pillows on the bed. She still hasn't fully recovered, it seems, Naruto thought. Naruto left the room to check on Sora, but found she was playing cards with Hayden and Sasori. Well, that was fast. Naruto hadn't expected Sora to get along with them so quickly. Naruto just shrugged and went back into the master bedroom and got into bed with Hinata, who quickly latched onto him in her sleep. Somewhere in the land of sound, Orochimaru came walking into a dimly lit room. He had a file in his hand he had yet to open. A candle sat in the middle of the table. Orochimaru sat down in a chair at the table next to someone. "Ah, Orochimaru. I see you have some news," the man said as he sipped his tea. "Yes, I have, Madara. I have news of your favorite person. It seems Naruto has just recently destroyed Akumo Fortress." The glass in Madara's hand shattered at the mention of the blonde's name. "And why would I care about such a thing as that?" "Oh, but you always wanted to find a weakness in the boy, and now we have one," Orochimaru said, a big sadistic grin on his face. "Explain." Orochimaru slid a picture in front of Madara. "She was the reason." The picture was of Hinata Hyuga. "You're telling me she was the reason he destroyed a fortress?" "Indeed. She was captured, it seems, and he went to save her. It's safe to reason she means a great deal to him. I've been waiting to find some weakness. Now I have it." Orochimaru, inform our allies to cease all movement into the land of fire and any allied lands, and to strengthen their own borders till told otherwise. We are going to wait until Naruto and the rest of those Akatsuki have grown complacent. Then we will strike. All this just to kill Naruto? No, not kill him. Not yet, at least. I will take everything he holds dear to him away, then I will kill him at my own leisure. Both he and his father have derailed my plans one too many times. Madara picked up the picture. "I will kill this girl first. If I have to wait a year or two for them to drop their guard enough, then so be it. I will make that boy suffer for his interference." Madara held Hinata's picture over the flame of the candle and watched it burn. Chapter 7. It had been 5 days since Naruto and Hinata had returned to the village. Hinata had taken up her former job as assistant teacher at the academy. Naruto had done nothing but hang around Hinata, be it at the academy or otherwise. The two had been spending all their time with one another. They also spent a great deal of time with Sora as well. Naruto had given Sora a few scrolls to study, one of them being sealing arts, while another was the Rasengan. Naruto sat in a tree on the academy grounds looking into the room Hinata was teaching. Hinata looked so happy just sitting there teaching the young shinobi. When Hinata was happy, Naruto was happy, as she was everything to him now. Naruto's friends came to visit the mansion when they could, and everything seemed to be back the way it was before he left. Even Konohamaru was begging him to train him like old times. Odd how everything goes back to the way it was. That's the thought Naruto had on his mind when he looked at how things were now. There was only one thing that was really different about things now. That one thing was Sakura. She had yet to confront Naruto. Of course, Naruto knew why she was avoiding him. He was glad she was avoiding him, as he never wanted to speak with her again. If they did speak, Naruto would have some rather unpleasant things to say to her. Today was the day the cages from the Sand and Mist villages would be arriving. Naruto was actually looking forward to seeing Gaara again after such a long time. Naruto's attention turned to the door of the academy. Hinata's class was coming out onto the academy grounds. Naruto smiled as Hinata came out right after her class. The class was preparing for a sparring session. Naruto smiled before disappearing from the tree and reappearing behind Hinata. "Hey, Hina-chan. "I've been waiting for you to come out," he said happily, wrapping his arms around her waist. Hinata smiled. She had been waiting for Naruto to come see her. She spun around in Naruto's arms and kissed him. The two stood there in each other's arms making out. The students just stared at the two of them, a decent amount of the male students, thinking it was gross. "Would you two play kissy face somewhere else?" Sora asked, rather annoyed that they couldn't wait till class was over. "Yes. I believe you might traumatize some of the male students." Everyone turned to see a man with red hair and a tattoo of the kanji for love above his left eye. The students knew who the man was, but didn't understand what he was doing here. Naruto and Hinata broke their kiss and looked to see Gaara, the current Kazekage. Naruto thought Gaara looked a good bit taller than the last time he had seen him. "Yo, Gaara, what's up?" "I didn't expect you to come here," Naruto said, not letting go of Hinata, who seemed somewhat embarrassed. "Sorry, Hina-chan, but it seems like I have to go talk with Gaara. I'll see you later, alright." Hinata gave him a quick peck on the cheek. "Of course, Naruto-kun. Go have a chat with Gaara." Naruto appeared next to Gaara, put an arm on his shoulder, and began to talk about the weather as the two walked off. Hinata-sensei, why is it that Naruto talks with the Kazekage so informally?" asked one of Hinata's female students. "The two of them are friends, and that's just how Naruto talks to his friends, regardless of rank or prestige. Also, Naruto is the only person to have beaten the Kazekage in a fight." "Really?" the same student asked. "They fought during the Sand and Sound invasion a little over 5 years ago. Although you won't find that information in any textbook. Now, pair up and get ready to start your sparring." Hinata watched them pair up and began their sparring session. She smiled as she watched Sora. Hinata sat down on a bench as she watched them spar. She had been feeling terrible all day and she really didn't know why. Hinata felt bad enough that she just wanted to lie down and sleep. She intended to go get a checkup from Tsunade after she was done at the academy today. Gaara and Naruto were walking down the street. Naruto was doing all the talking. Everyone was staring at the two of them as they walked down the street. Naruto was just chatting away about completely random things until Gaara spoke up. "You looked happy with her," Gaara stated, cutting Naruto off mid-rant. "Yeah, Hina-chan is awesome." An image of Hinata appeared in Naruto's mind. "I've never really loved anyone before, but she's the one," Naruto replied, a pleasant smile on his face. Gaara was pleased to see his old friend act like he once had years ago. "It's good to see you smile again. From what I've heard, you weren't acting like your old self." Naruto thought about what Gaara had said for a minute. "Yeah, well, I guess I was pretty cold and unapproachable for a time." Naruto changed the subject to Gaara instead of himself. "So Gaara, what about you? Found anyone special?" Naruto had a grin on his face as he awaited Gaara's answer. Naruto was surprised when Gaara smiled a little. "I guess you haven't been keeping tabs on me, Naruto. If you had, you would know I was married already. My wife is currently 2 weeks pregnant with our first child." Naruto just stared at Gaara for a moment. So Gaara is a married man? Never thought that would happen. And he's even got a kid on the way. Naruto put his arm around Gaara's shoulder once again before speaking. "So what's her name? How did you two meet? And what are you going to name your kid?" Naruto began to barrage Gaara with questions. "Her name is Mitsuri. She was actually my apprentice at one point. About 3 years ago, we started dating and last year we got married. And if it's a boy I wanted to name him Naruto, after you." Gaara answered Naruto's questions without hesitation. If it were anyone else, Gaara would most likely not have answered those questions so quickly, if at all. Naruto really couldn't believe that. Gaara was going to name his son after himself. Naruto really couldn't understand why someone would want to name their child after him. "Really?" Naruto asked in disbelief. "Why? It's not that I'm complaining or anything. I just can't understand why you would want to." "Because it felt appropriate," Gaara replied. Naruto smiled. "Alright. This calls for drinks." Naruto pumped his fist into the air and dragged Gaara off to the nearest bar. "Naruto, I don't drink," Gaara said in protest as Naruto dragged him off. "Nope. You're drinking, and that's that. The cage meeting can wait," Naruto stated as his grip on Gaara tightened on and dragged him inside of the bar. Mitsuri was walking around the village, trying to find her husband. She had heard Gaara had headed to the academy, so that's where she was currently walking to. Arriving at the front gates of the academy, she noticed a class that was currently sparring and a beautiful woman with long indigo sitting on a bench. Mitsuri knew this woman to be Hinata Hyuga. She walked over and sat down next to Hinata. "How have you been, Mitsuri?" Hinata asked. Hinata smiled pleasantly at her friend. "Oh, just fine. I'm pregnant, though," Mitsuri replied with pride. "Really? That's wonderful." Hinata replied, she was happy for Mitsuri. Hinata hugged Mitsuri and congratulations on the soon-to-be new addition to her family. Mitsuri decided to ask about Gaara in a little bit because it had been a while since she and Hinata had talked. "I hear Naruto's back and you two are an item?" Mitsuri asked teasingly. Hinata blushed and played with her index fingers. She had gotten over her shyness, well, most of it, at least a few years ago, but when someone talked like that to her, she couldn't help it. Yes. We've done it a few times, too, I guess, she replied nervously. Mitsuri smiled, you can be so cute when you're embarrassed, Hinata. Mitsuri began to giggle at Hinata. Come on, Hinata. Tell me the details. It's your childhood fantasy come to life. Hinata smiled. Mitsuri was right, it was her childhood dream. Hinata began to tell her all the dirty details of everything that had happened. The two sat there and chatted while the students finished their sparring and headed inside. Really? You got out of the shower then threw yourself on him? Mitsuri asked. Hinata blushed at how Mitsuri had bluntly put what she described to her. Well, I wouldn't say I threw myself on him, Hinata fidgeted. She was feeling really uncomfortable now. Mitsuri just smiled. Well, enough girl talk. Do you happen to know where my husband is? She asked. He and Naruto walked off a little while ago. I'll see if I can find them with my Byakugan. Hinata activated her Byakugan and proceeded to scan the village. She found them, alright, in a bar, drinking. It seemed Naruto and Gaara are in a bar, drinking. Naruto probably dragged Gaara with him. Hinata stood up. Let me go find someone to take my class so we can go get them. Sure. Mitsuri sat there and watched as Hinata went inside the academy. She didn't have to wait long as Hinata came out minutes later. Mitsuri stood up and the two of them walked off to retrieve what was theirs. Hinata and Mitsuri walked through the village to the bar. They chatted about what had happened lately. The subject turned to what they would name their kids. Hinata was pleasantly surprised when she heard Gaara wanted to name his first son after Naruto. They arrived at the bar. Gaara sat next to Naruto as they took shots. Come on Gaara. You've only had 4, you lightweight. Naruto said as he put down his 8th glass. I can't drink that much right now. I have meetings to go to, Naruto, Gaara replied, swaying back and forth on his seat. Gaara fell over and hit the ground. Naruto just looked at Gaara and cracked up. He fell backwards off his seat and hit the ground as well. Naruto opened his eyes to see the most beautiful thing he had ever seen. Hi Haim. Naruto stated while lying on the ground. Naruto quickly got up off the floor. Naruto, you're drunk. Hinata sounded somewhat amused. And you're sexy. He said hugging her and burying his face into her chest. I love my Hina-chan, he mumbled as he snuggled into her chest. A light pink blush appeared on Hinata's face. Then again, I guess you're not drunk, she stated. Naruto let go of her and looked her in the eyes. What gave me away? Well, you weren't really acting all that drunk, just goofy, you should really try slurring your words next time, she replied with a small giggle. Naruto pouted a little bit before the 4 of them exited the bar. An Anbu dropped down in front of them just as they exited the bar. Sorry, but if you're here to get Gaara, he's a little drunk at the moment. It will have to wait. Just tell Bachin the meeting will have to take place in a few hours, once it's out of his system. The Anbu only nodded and disappeared without a word in reply. Mitsuri was helping Gaara walk, seeing as he couldn't walk straight to save his life at the moment. I think this is the first time Gaara's ever had a drink before, Mitsuri stated. Really? Sure is a lightweight when it comes to drinking, then. I mean, try drinking with Kakuzu sometime. That guy can sure put them away. Naruto stated. Naruto walked with an arm around Hinata's waist holding her closely. Hinata sighed happily. Both her arms were around Naruto as she walked. So, how was your talk with Gaara, Naruto-kun? He really has a lot more emotions now, unlike the last time I talked with him. Other than that, he really hasn't changed, Naruto replied. They chatted as they walked down the street. The 4 of them weren't headed in any specific direction, they were just walking. The 4 at the moment looked like 2 normal couples walking down the street. The villagers would have thought the sight was cute if they didn't know who those people were. Sakura was walking down the street, she had just gone to the store to pick up a few things. Sakura had been avoiding Naruto since she knew he was back. She would even go so far as to duck into alleyways and hide behind something to avoid him. Why won't you stop avoiding him and just talk to him? Lee asked. Sakura looked over at her boyfriend who was walking beside her back to their apartment. Because I know he doesn't want to talk with me, Lee-kun, or even see me for that matter. I don't think. Sakura cut Lee off. I love you, Lee-kun, but you don't always understand how long people can hold a grudge. What I said and did a little over 5 years ago was something he didn't deserve, Sakura explained. They continued to walk until Sakura heard a familiar voice. Naruto-kun, don't grab my butt in public. Oh, why not? You have a great butt and I just can't help myself. Naruto thought about what Hinata had just said. So, does that mean I can grab your butt in private? Hinata blushed, unable to answer that question in front of others. She knew Naruto was just doing this to embarrass her. Sakura stood there, frozen in place as Naruto and Hinata came walking down the street with Akatsuki and his wife. Naruto stopped teasing Hinata and looked at Sakura in front of him. His eyes narrowed dangerously at his former teammate. Naruto said nothing, he only glared daggers at her. Before Naruto did anything rash, he walked off, keeping Hinata next to him. Aren't you going to say hi to your former teammate, Naruto? Lee asked. What teammate? My teammates, as you call them, died a little over 5 years ago in my eyes. The only one left is my teacher, Kakashi, Naruto replied before walking off. Mitsuri and Gaara quickly followed Naruto and Hinata. Sakura just stood there, head pointed at the ground. She was expecting a response like that, but it actually hurt more than she thought it would. Let's just go home, Lee-kun, Sakura said sadly before walking in the direction of their apartment. For once in his life, Lee didn't know how to respond. He would normally talk about youth or something like that, but right now, he couldn't even think of a single word to say. Lee caught up to Sakura and put an arm around her. Tsunade and Mei were sitting in the Hokage's office, waiting on Gaara to arrive. I wonder where Gaara is. It's not like him to be late, Mei stated. I have a feeling he went to go chat with Naruto and they lost track of time, Tsunade replied. She pulled out a bottle of sake for the both of them. So why not get a few drinks in while we wait? Sounds like a plan. The two began to drink the contents of the bottle when an Anbu appeared in the room. He bent down and whispered something into Tsunade's ear. The Anbu disappeared right after delivering his message. Well, it seems like Gaara beat us to drinking. Naruto dragged him along and got him drunk. Mei just started laughing. She downed the sake that Tsunade gave her. Tell me, are the rumors true that a single person destroyed that Kumo fortress about a week ago? All true, Naruto was the one who did it. Hinata Hyuga was captured and Naruto went to save her. Really? Sounds like a romance story I read once. Tsunade chuckled. Yeah, it does, doesn't it? Well, the two are an item at the moment. I wouldn't doubt them getting married sometime soon. Wish I could find a man like that, Mei mused as she drank some more sake. Yeah, well, a few years ago I finally realized I had one who had been my teammate for years. I just finally gave him a chance. Well, screw his brains out, have a kid and live happily ever after, Mei said bluntly with a perverted smile on her face. Tsunade was taking a sip of her sake until she spit it all over the floor after hearing Mei. I'm over 50. I'm way too old to have a child. Excuses, Mei replied taking another sip of sake. If I ever found a man I wouldn't let him slip by me. Considering I'm a cage, it's hard to find one that honestly likes me for who I am and not the title and all. Tsunade nodded her head in agreement. Well, Naruto never had that problem since Hinata, the one he saved, has had a crush on him for years. I wish he would have realized her crush on him years ago, before he left the village. Mei just shrugged. At least she got her prize in the end. I wonder how he is in bed, Mei mused as perverted thoughts filling her mind. I wish you wouldn't talk about my godson like that, Mei. Mei laughed. Sorry, I can't always help myself. Tsunade sighed and pulled a report out of her desk. She decided that was enough idle chit-chat. It seems they have pulled back all their forces for the time being. Mei opened the file and read it over quickly. Why though? It couldn't just be from one destroyed fortress. Mei looked at the pictures of what was left of the fortress. Do you think they're planning a major offensive? I have no idea. It doesn't make any sense at all, to be honest. My strategist can't make heads or tails of this current course of action. Mei put down the file. I suppose we will just have to wait and see what they're planning. That's exactly what my strategist said when I talked with him earlier about the matter. Well, we can let everyone rest up. They've been constantly attacking the borders at random for a while now. However, they only recently declared war on the Leaf and their allies. Yes, I know that, and it's a good thing we now have the Akatsuki to help us in this war. The two cages sat there and discussed what to do, but they couldn't really come up with anything other than sit tight and see what they do. Tsunade and Mei headed to the hospital, seeing as Tsunade was still the head doctor and needed to make her rounds. Naruto, Hinata, Mitsuri, and Gaara had arrived back at the mansion. Naruto and Hinata were in the master bedroom on the couch. Naruto was still in a foul mood after seeing Sakura. Hinata was trying to get him in a better mood, but he was being difficult. Hinata was currently sitting on Naruto's lap, her arms wrapped around his neck trying to talk with him. Naruto-kun, please stop being so upset. I don't like seeing you like this. Naruto wrapped his arms around her waist and held her closer. I'm sorry, Hina-hime. I can forgive a lot of things, but right now I can't forgive her for what happened back then. Naruto noticed how much paler Hinata was right now. Are you doing alright, Hina-chan? You look kind of pale. Hinata curled up in Naruto's lap and laid her head down on his chest. No, Naruto-kun. I don't feel all that well today. I planned on going to see Tsunade or someone at the hospital for a checkup after my class, but Mitsuri wanted me to help find Gaara and I forgot all about it. Aren't you one of the best medics or something like that? Naruto asked, wondering why she just didn't diagnose her own problem. I guess, but I try not to treat myself. I prefer having someone else make the diagnosis just in case. Well then I'll take you to the hospital to get you checked out. Naruto picked Hinata up bridal style and walked out of the master bedroom. He walked down the stairs with Hinata in his arms. He saw Gaara passed out against Mitsuri, who was talking with Conan. "Well, Gaara certainly looks comfortable." "Well, so does Hinata, it seems," Conan replied. Hinata blushed and Mitsuri giggled at the comment, then looked at Gaara and smiled. "Well, Hinata and I will be out for a little while. You'll be fine here, Mitsuri." "Of course. Gaara probably won't be up and about for another hour or so, I think." Naruto nodded and headed outside. "Naruto-kun, I can walk on my own," Hinata said in a more assertive tone than normal. Naruto sighed. "Fine," he stated before he reluctantly put Hinata down. Hinata wrapped her arms around Naruto's right arm and the two walked off in the direction of the hospital. Hinata had an idea what was wrong with her, but she wanted a second opinion on the matter before she told Naruto. If it turned out that her suspicion was correct, she hoped Naruto would like the news as well. They made it to the hospital in about 15 minutes since they walked there at a slow pace. The two of them ran into Tsunade, who agreed to check to see what was wrong with Hinata. Hinata and Naruto were both surprised when they saw the Mizukage following Tsunade around. Both Naruto and Hinata waited in one of the vacant rooms as they waited for the test results. Naruto had no idea what tests were being run, as he didn't bother to ask. Naruto sat next to Hinata on the bed as they waited. He looked at Hinata. She seemed to be happy, as there was a pleasant smile on his face. Naruto wrapped an arm around her waist and pulled her close. She let out a cute little squeak-like noise because she wasn't paying attention and was startled by Naruto's actions. "Ami, you can be so cute, Hina-chan," Naruto said while hugging her. Hinata relaxed and leaned into Naruto. She was happy he was back to the happy person he used to be before he left the village. What they didn't notice was that Tsunade and Mei were standing in the doorway watching them. The two of them just smiled as they watched a happy couple. After a minute, Tsunade cleared her throat telling to the two that they were back in the room. "Well, Hinata, I have your test results and it seems congratulations are in order," Tsunade said in a happy tone as she spoke. "Your symptoms came a little quicker than most women, but it shouldn't cause any problems. I can give you something for the fatigue, but I have a feeling that will go away in a few days anyhow. Again, I'm a little surprised that you showed these types of symptoms so quickly. Normally it's a few weeks after the fact." "Really?" Hinata asked excitedly. Hinata was excited she was going to have Naruto's baby. Her hand went instinctively towards her belly. Naruto was looking between Hinata and Tsunade. He didn't get what was going on. They said something was happening, but they weren't exactly being specific. I'm lost here. What's happening exactly and why does Hinata look really excited? Not that that's a bad thing. I love when Hinata's happy. But what's going on?" Tsunade grinned. "Well, brat, you're going to be a daddy in about 9 months, maybe a little sooner, depending on how things progress." Tsunade was thoroughly amused by the look on Naruto's face, as he had been taken completely by surprise. "I'm going to be a dad?" Naruto asked nobody in particular, not believing this was happening. "Are you alright, Naruto-kun?" Hinata asked, a little worried. She turned her head to see that he was a little shocked. Naruto snapped out of his daze after hearing he was going to be a father, which was something he never thought would happen. He looked into Hinata's eyes, which were filled with worry. "Yeah, I'm fine, just surprised. I honestly never thought I'd be a father." He was honestly surprised. He never considered he could get Hinata pregnant on the first try. He certainly didn't get her pregnant any other time, seeing as they used protection every time after that. Hinata seemed disappointed. Naruto wasn't very enthusiastic about the whole thing. "You're not happy that I'm pregnant?" Hinata asked in a depressed tone. Naruto's eyes widened. No, that's not what I meant." He replied frantically, trying to show Hinata he was happy about what was going on. "I'm happy about it, really. I was just really surprised is all. I mean, I was going to ask you to marry me in a few weeks once we went out on a few dates and I talked with your dad some more." Naruto had not meant to say the last part, but he wasn't really thinking straight at the moment. Also, it's not that he didn't want to marry Hinata, it's just that he wanted the moment to be special. Of course, he blew that now. Hinata perked up. "Really?" Hinata asked excitedly. She spun around in Naruto's arms and kissed him. The two fell back against the bed, making out. Tsunade and Mei turned around and exited the room to give them some privacy. The two of them walked down the halls of the hospital. They needed to have the strategy meeting soon. They hoped by now Gaara was ready. "Well, looks like there will be wedding bells soon enough, it seems," Mei said as they walked. "Looks that way, doesn't it?" Tsunade replied. The two Kage left the hospital. Tsunade sent an Anbu to find the Kazukiage so they could begin their meeting properly. An hour later the Kage and a few others met in the council room. "So does anyone have an idea as to why they have taken this current course of action?" Tsunade asked after she had explained all that has happened since Naruto demolished a fortress. Tsunade was addressing the others in the room. Shikaku and Shikamaru Nara, Kakashi, Asuma and Guy were the only others in the room. They talked about possibilities but really couldn't think of anything. What they expected was a retaliatory action, not the opposite. Then Shikamaru thought of something. It didn't make complete sense, but it was the only thing he could think of. Do you think they're gunning for Naruto? The room fell silent. Explain. Well, I'm sure they know who did it by now. If that's the case, wouldn't it be more prudent to harden their defensive lines, seeing as he so easily destroyed a key position? Right now they will most likely send assassination teams after him once he lets his guard down. Or the most plausible thing they will do is go after someone close to him. And I'm sure we can all agree there is only one person that fits that description. Shikamaru explained. Everyone looked at one another, all feeling uncomfortable at what Shikamaru was saying. Tsunade was the most concerned of all, considering Naruto would be a father by the end of the year. She wasn't going to speak of that now. She didn't want that information to get out until the two of them were ready. There isn't much we can do except place Anbu near his estate. I know he won't allow them on the grounds at all, Tsunade said. The doors suddenly opened and Tsunade's 3 advisors stormed into the room. Why were we not told of this? Homura yelled. Because I don't know if I can trust the 3 of you anymore. Leave before I have you forcibly removed. Tsunade roared. Anbu appeared at the doorway and waited for the signal to forcibly remove the 3 of them from the room. However, that wasn't necessary, as they quickly exited once they got the hint. The meeting continued for a few more hours before they adjourned for the day. They decided to watch the other enemy nations closely and wait. Naruto and Hinata were relaxing in the private hot springs at the Namikaze estate. Hinata sat in the water leaning against Naruto. Her mind was racing with thoughts of what was going to happen. They had yet to tell anyone that Hinata was with child. Naruto's arm wrapped around her in a comforting manner. Naruto didn't say anything, he just held her. He knew she was a little stressed. What are we going to do, Naruto-kun? Hinata asked. Everything is just moving so fast. Hinata wasn't really upset about having Naruto's baby. Hinata was happy about that part. She was just worried about what her friends and her clan were going to say and do about this. Everything will be alright, Haim. Don't worry about what others think. We can tell everyone when you're ready. Now I think it's time we got out and got some sleep. It's been a long day. Naruto got out of the water and got a robe for himself and put it on. He walked back over with another robe and waited for Hinata. He slipped the robe on her and the two left for their bedroom. A few minutes later, they were in their room. Hinata lay on her side while Naruto had his arms wrapped around her waist, both of them still in their bathrobes. Naruto was doing his best to try and relieve Hinata's anxiety since they returned to the estate. Naruto pulled her up against him. She seemed to relax when he did that. What will Sora say when she hears about this? Hinata asked. She'll probably wonder if she's getting a little brother or sister, I bet, he replied. That made Hinata giggle a bit. Yeah, I guess that does sound like a response from Sora. Get some sleep, Haim. I know you're tired, Naruto said as he pulled the covers over the two of them. Hinata turned around until she was facing Naruto. He just smiled and kissed her on the forehead. Hinata buried her face into his chest as Naruto held her against him. She soon fell asleep in his arms, a smile on her face. Naruto lay there awake, holding Hinata. He could talk all he wanted about everything being alright. Yet he himself was very worried about something happening to Hinata and his child. Naruto thought about what Hinata had said earlier. Things were indeed moving fast. Naruto looked down at Hinata, who was snuggling against him. Don't worry, Hina-chan. I'll take care of everything, he whispered. Naruto smiled and thought about the little surprise that was on the way in the form as his firstborn child. He fell asleep, wondering if it was a boy or girl. What if Naruto snaps at Sasuke at Valley of the End? Thanks for watching my video till the end. If you enjoy this content, then do consider subscribing to my channel and leave a like if you guys need the next part, comment down, and thanks for watching the video and see you guys in the next video.